In early spring of 202 BC, the overlord Xiang Yu took his own life on the banks of the Wu River. The Han soldiers who had surrounded him, once hesitant to advance, now swarmed his fallen body like ravenous dogs. They trampled each other, even drew swords on one another, all for the prize of his head, a prize worth a fief of 10,000 households. In the end, after dozens of men had died, the spoils were divided among 5 junior officers. Liu Bang, true to his word, divided the fief and awarded it to them. But if you look closely at the records, you'll find 2 deeply meaningful details. First, the 5 men were not ennobled at the same time. The earliest was made a marquis over 2 years later. The latest had to wait for 3. The first to be honored were 2 of Liu Bang's own junior cavalry commanders. The last, who also received the smallest share, was a cavalry commander from Guan Ying's elite unit, equivalent to a manager from a subsidiary company. Second, among the 5, the ones who received the largest shares, 1,900 and 1,700 households respectively, were both, at that time, subordinates of Han Xin. In the corporate structure of the empire, they were employees of another joint stock company. Why would Han Xin's men receive greater rewards than Liu Bang's own? One very important reason is that at the time of their enfeoffment in early 199 BC, Han Xin was not yet dead. Contrary to the concept ingrained in us by many popular history books, Han Xin was not cooked like a stray dog immediately after the Han Dynasty was founded. In fact, he died in 196 BC, a full 6 years after the empire's establishment. During that time, he spent several months as the king of Qi, another year as the king of Chu, and finally lived freely in the capital, Chang'an, for 5 years as the Marquis of Huayin before he was killed by Xiaohe and Empress Lü. In fact, the time he spent as a king and marquis after the founding of the Han Empire was far longer than the time he spent commanding its armies as Liu Bang's Grand Marshal. Also contrary to popular belief, throughout these 6 years, although Liu Bang and Han Xin had several tense confrontations, Liu Bang always left him an out. He may have hesitated over whether to execute Han Xin, but he never made that final decision. It was Empress Lü who wielded the final blow. Liu Bang's ruthlessness, hesitation, and regret in the matter of Han Xin perfectly illustrate the complexity of early Han politics and the uncertainty of the empire's path in its nascent years.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to China Puzzle. The smoke of the Chu-Han contention has cleared, but the foundations of the Han Empire are not yet secure. In the few years that remained to him, the founding emperor, Liu Bang, would spend his days in a whirlwind of political negotiations, purges of former allies, and suppressions of rebellions. And his treatment of the very men who won him the empire, beginning with Han Xin, would become a permanent stain on his legacy and on the early history of his dynasty. But what is the real story? Was Liu Bang simply a petty man who broke his promises? Now, let us peel back the mists of history, year by year, case by case, to decipher the hidden political logic behind the first great purge of the Han Dynasty.
After Xiang Yu's defeat and death, Liu Bang sent his generals to mop up the remaining pockets of resistance in the former state of Chu. He himself, however, chose to travel north from Gaixia to the city of Dingtao. Liu Bang did not come alone. According to the records, not only did the main Han army follow him, but all the other vassal kings of his coalition, including Yingbu and Peng Yue, were also present. Han Xin, king of Qi, was of course no exception. Why come to Dingtao? Because this was the headquarters of Han Xin, king of Qi. The histories state, returning to Dingtao, he galloped into the king of Qi's camp and seized his army. Once again, Liu Bang used a sudden surprise maneuver to strip Han Xin of his military command. On the surface, this seems like a carbon copy of the incident a few years earlier, when Liu Bang had rushed alone to Han Xin's camp at Xiuwu to seize his troops. However, a closer analysis of these few short sentences reveals several inconsistencies. First, at this time, Liu Bang was not yet emperor. On what authority did he seize the king of Qi's army? At Xiuwu, Han Xin was still the left chancellor and grand marshal of the state of Han. It was the king's right to reclaim his command. But now, Han Xin was the king of Qi, nominally Liu Bang's equal. In theory, Liu Bang had no authority to take over the Qi army. Second, at Xiuwu, Han Xin's army included at least 30,000 of Liu Bang's own troops. This time, however, the Han units previously assigned to Han Xin were elsewhere. Guan Ying's elite cavalry was mopping up in Chu, and Cao Ken was stationed back in Qi to maintain order. So, when Liu Bang seized the king of Qi's army, he wasn't simply recalling his own men. He was genuinely taking command of the armies of Wei, Dai, Zhao, and Qi that Han Xin had conquered. Third, of the 600,000 troops who participated in the siege of Gaixia, 300,000 were Han Xin's. This means that among the forces gathered at Dingtao, Han Xin's Qi army was likely the main contingent. So, on what grounds could Liu Bang seize it? And how? With the help of the other vassal kings like Yingbu and Peng Yue? That is neither logical nor plausible. Let's look at a later record. Just 1 year later, when someone accused Han Xin of plotting rebellion, Liu Bang prepared to lead an army against him. Chen Ping dissuaded him, arguing, "Your Majesty's troops are not as elite as Chu's, and your generals are not as capable as Han Xin." If Liu Bang had already seized Han Xin's army at Dingtao, where did Han Xin's elite Chu troops come from in just 1 year? Finally, let's look at the very next entry in the records. He transferred Han Xin, king of Qi, to be the king of Chu with his capital at Xiapi. And another entry. In the first month, the vassal kings, generals, and ministers jointly requested to honor the king of Han as emperor.
These historical entries are crucial, but their sequence is even more so. Only by becoming emperor did Liu Bang gain the authority to transfer the king of Qi to the throne of Chu, and only then could he possibly seize an army that did not originally belong to the state of Han, and only as the king of Chu could Han Xin plausibly retain an elite force independent of the central army. But the precondition for all of this was the consensus of the vassal kings, generals, and ministers to acclaim the king of Han as emperor. Why? On what grounds?
When we piece all these clues together, a more politically logical timeline emerges. After Xiang Yu's death, Liu Bang, wary of Han Xin's immense military power, summoned all the vassal kings to Han Xin's camp at Dingtao under the pretext of fulfilling his promises of enfeoffment. With both sides possessing comparable strength, a temporary military balance was achieved. Liu Bang couldn't move against Han Xin, and Han Xin couldn't launch a surprise attack on Liu Bang and the other kings. It was in this delicate, brief equilibrium that intense political negotiations took place. First, Liu Bang honored his promise to carve up the lands east of the Hangu Pass. The other kings and generals were all handsomely rewarded with larger territories and new titles. Second, Liu Bang made a special arrangement for Han Xin. The official reason given was that since the line of the righteous king of Chu had died out, Han Xin, being a native of Chu, should be made its new king. But in reality, when Liu Bang was trapped at Guling, the deal he had offered Han Xin was all the lands from Chen to the Eastern Sea, which was essentially the territory of Chu. Moreover, at that time, Han Xin's kingdom of Qi comprised 73 counties. A huge state, to be sure, but it paled in comparison to the kingdom of Chu he was now given. Later, after Han Xin was demoted, Liu Bang split his Chu kingdom into two, totaling 89 counties. This was a massive territory, a superstate second to none. It was a fat piece of meat that Liu Bang had to offer. It both fulfilled his promise and effectively broke up Han Xin's power base. As the king of Chu, it would be inappropriate for him to continue leading the armies of Qi, Zhao, and Wei, wouldn't it? The Qi army would now become the emperor's direct subordinates. As for the remaining troops, would they be willing to follow a king of Chu to the land of Chu? And it was a deal Han Xin had to accept. Since Liu Bang had not broken his word, Han Xin had no moral grounds to oppose him. Besides, Han Xin was not an ambitious man who craved the imperial throne. He simply wished for land, a title, and to return home in glory. The title of King of Chu gave him the perfect opportunity to achieve fame and retire.
And so, a compromise was reached. The vassal kings at Dingtao acclaimed Liu Bang, king of Han, as the emperor. The Han dynasty was officially founded. Han Xin, king of Qi, became Han Xin, king of Chu. He journeyed south to his new kingdom with a small retinue of elite troops, while the bulk of the Qi army was taken by Liu Bang. This is the logical truth behind the seizure of the army and the acclamation of the emperor at Dingtao.
After ascending the throne at Dingtao, Liu Bang did not cease his campaigns. The histories record that immediately after, the king of Linjiang, who had been enfeoffed by Xiang Yu, rebelled. This is a classic case of, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. The first king of Linjiang had been a high official of Chu. He was one of the 4 kings involved in the assassination of Chu's rightful ruler. But that was the extent of his military action. During the Chu-Han contention, he never sent a single soldier to aid Xiang Yu. In fact, he had died of illness 2 years prior. The current king was his son. So, this weak, self-preserving little kingdom decided to rebel at the very moment Xiang Yu was dead. The Han Dynasty was founded, the empire was settled, and Liu Bang commanded hundreds of thousands of battle-hardened troops. Whatever the reason, Liu Bang sent 2 of his top generals to besiege the kingdom for several months. The king of Linjiang eventually surrendered, was dragged to the capital, and executed. His kingdom was, of course, abolished and turned into a commandery directly administered by the central government. After pacifying Linjiang, Liu Bang could finally return in triumph. In the 5th month of that year, at a grand banquet in Luoyang, he gave his famous speech. In devising strategies in the command tent that determine victory 1,000 miles away, I am not as good as Zhang Liang. In governing the state, pacifying the people, and ensuring an unbroken supply line, I am not as good as Xiao He. In commanding an army of 1,000,000, winning every battle, and taking every city, I am not as good as Han Xin. These 3 are all heroes among men. I was able to use them, and that is why I conquered the empire. You see, at this point in time, Liu Bang's mindset seems to have relaxed a bit. He could even openly praise Han Xin's military genius. This suggests that, at least for now, he did not believe that he and Han Xin were locked in a fight to the death. After this speech, Liu Bang, at Zhang Liang's suggestion, established his capital in the Central Plains and began construction of the great city of Chang'an. It was at this moment that he issued a general order to demobilize the armies. But there was an interesting policy distinction. Soldiers willing to settle in Guangzhong were granted 12 years of tax and labor exemption. Those who wished to return to their homes in the east were granted only 6 years. The choice was obvious. The purpose, self-evident. A few months later, Zhang Tu, the king of Yan, rebelled. This was an even more absurd version of the Linjiang rebellion. Zhang Tu, a king enfeoffed by Xiang Yu, had shrewdly surrendered after Han Xin conquered the north. He had even sent his own troops to join Liu Bang's coalition against Chu. He had personally attended the acclamation at Dingtao. And now, at this moment, with the empire settled, he rebelled. Does that make any sense? What makes even less sense is the result. It was said that Zhang Tu invaded the region of Dai. Liu Bang then personally led an expeditionary force and, in a very short time, broke the Yan army's defensive lines and captured Zhang Tu alive. This entire campaign took place within the kingdom of Yan. Only after Zhang Tu was captured did Liu Bang order his generals to turn towards Dai to mop up the remnants. Some have speculated that Zhang Tu rebelled out of resentment, being the only vassal king at Dingtao who received no new benefits. Others suggest he was colluding with the Xiongnu nomads to the north.
But the truth is lost to the vanished records, leaving only 2 deeply suspicious facts. After Zhang Tu was captured, Liu Bang appointed a new king and chancellor of Yan, his own childhood friend Lu Wan, and his own brother-in-law Fan Kuai. And who was it that had first accused Zhang Tu of plotting rebellion? His own chancellor, the very same general he had sent to aid Liu Bang's army. There is one more detail. For his great merit in the Yan campaign, one of Liu Bang's generals, Li Shang, was appointed Right Chancellor, a position temporarily even higher than Xiao He's, to manage the military affairs of the entire empire.
After entrusting the kingdom of Yan to his childhood friend and brother-in-law, Liu Bang returned to Luoyang. Along the way, a small incident occurred, so small that many historical analyses overlook it. One of Xiang Yu's former commanders, Li Ji, had rebelled. There are no other records of this man, Li Ji, before or after this event. All we know for certain is that he was the Duke of Chen, appointed by Xiang Yu to guard the strategic city of Chen. Later, during the Guling-Chenxia campaign, where Liu Bang's army annihilated Xiang Yu's main force, Li Ji likely surrendered the city of Chen. For this, he was rewarded with a marquisate in Yingchuan. Consider this. At that time, not even Liu Bang's most loyal followers like Xiao He, Zhang Liang, or Cao had been made marquises. Yet this surrendered Chu general was elevated in a single step. So, it should come as no surprise that after eliminating the vassal kings of Linjiang and Yan, kings Xiang Yu had created, Liu Bang's next targets would be surrendered Chu commanders like Li Ji. The histories say that Li Ji rebelled because Liu Bang summoned all the marquises of the empire to a meeting in Luoyang, and Li Ji, out of fear, dared not go and thus raised his army. Again, a ludicrous reason, and an equally brief process. Liu Bang led his troops to attack him, and Li Ji fled. Li Ji's commandery of Yingchuan was absorbed by Liu Bang and later given to one of his most loyal, long-serving followers, the King Xin of Han. Then, Liu Bang issued another edict, ordering a nationwide manhunt for all fugitive commanders of the former state of Chu. For everyone with a background in the state of Chu, this was a chilling reminder. And there were many such men, including Chen Ping and Han Xin. Just over a month later, in early 201 BC, as if following a script, someone accused Han Xin of plotting rebellion. Some say this was a baseless charge, arguing that the histories never present any evidence of his treason. In fact, they do. The records of the Grand Historian state it plainly in the chronological tables. He was demoted to Marquis of Huaiyan for the crime of mobilizing troops without authorization. In short, Han Xin, as the king of Chu, had committed some procedural error in the raising and moving of his troops. Someone seized upon this flaw and branded it as treason. So who discovered this military procedural flaw? The records are silent. But we must remember who, at that time, was in charge of managing the military affairs of the entire empire with the rank of Right Chancellor, Li Shang. And Li Shang's older brother was Li Yiji, the man whom Han Xin had indirectly caused to be boiled alive. So it is not hard to understand why, when someone accused Han Xin of rebellion, all the high-ranking generals, the military establishment, chimed in, "What else is there to do? Seize the punk! Bury him alive!" And it was Chen Ping, a man who also had a Chu background, who came forward to dissuade Liu Bang, ultimately devising the plan for Liu Bang to feign a tour of the Yunmeng Marsh and summon Han Xin to meet him at Chen. If Han Xin came, he could be easily dealt with. If he dared not to come, he would be branding himself a rebel, just like Li Ji, and Liu Bang would lead his victorious army into Chu. Fortunately, Han Xin, after much hesitation, consideration, and calculation, decided to trust in Liu Bang's character. He went to Chen to greet Liu Bang and was promptly arrested and put in chains. Han Xin's exact thoughts are lost to history. We only have two details. First, upon receiving Liu Bang's summons, he did consider armed resistance. But, believing himself to be innocent, he thought, "I have done no wrong. Liu Bang has no reason, no moral justification to seize me. On what grounds could he kill me?" He even, in an attempt to please Liu Bang, killed the fugitive Chu general Zhongli Mo, who had taken refuge with him, earning himself a black mark in history.
But Han Xin, the immortal of war, truly lacked the political mind of a Liu Bang. He could only think in the two extremes of his own guilt or innocence, and whether Liu Bang could or could not kill him. He did not realize that in the eyes of a politician, there are 1,000 shades of gray in between. And Liu Bang was a grand magician, a master of walking that tightrope.
On the very day Han Xin was arrested, Liu Bang issued an edict. Some men have been in the army for 9 years and may not yet be accustomed to the rule of law, or may have broken the law due to old habits. For some, this has led to capital offences. I take great pity on them. Therefore, I grant a general amnesty to the empire. What does this mean? Who had committed a capital offence? Who was not yet accustomed to the rule of law? Who was being pardoned? Is it not obvious? When Liu Bang finally returned to the capital with his army and Han Xin in chains, he officially pardoned the king of Chu, demoting him to the Marquis of Huaiyin and ordering him to reside permanently in the capital. It was perhaps only then that Han Xin understood that his guilt and innocence, his pardon and punishment, were all subject to Liu Bang's political interpretation. This is the true meaning behind the famous exchange when, later, Liu Bang asked Han Xin how many men he could command, and Han Xin uttered the immortal line, "Your Majesty cannot command soldiers, but you are adept at commanding generals." This was not sarcasm, nor was it flattery. It was a sincere, objective admission that in the realm of politics, Liu Bang was a heaven-sent genius. After this, the kingdom of Chu was dismembered into 2 smaller kingdoms and given to members of the Liu family. With the former state of Qi already given to his eldest son, and the state of Yan in the hands of his childhood friend, Liu Bang now held the 2 most important territories of the East in the hands of men he could trust. He could finally breathe a sigh of relief, and he could finally turn his attention to the pack of hungry wolves in his own camp. By now, a full year had passed since his enthronement at Dingtao. The generals who had won him the empire had been waiting for their rewards for far too long. Their resentment was boiling over. Seeing that a mutiny was imminent, Zhang Liang offered Liu Bang a piece of advice. He suggested first ennobling Yong Qi, the man Liu Bang despised most, the man who had betrayed him in his hometown, as a marquis, to temporarily quell the general's complaints. Then, after much intense calculation, in the 2nd month of 201 BC, the great enfeoffment finally began. First, of course, was the ranking of merit. All the generals believed that Cao Can's merit was the greatest. He had fought for years, was covered in over 70 wounds, and should receive the highest honor. But Liu Bang disagreed. He personally proposed that the chancellor, Xiao He, should be ranked first. The records of the Grand Historian says that the military commanders immediately began to argue with the emperor. The emperor reasoned with them, other civil officials came out in support, and a logical argument was presented that even without 100 men like Cao Can, the Han would not have been diminished. But Xiao He, who governed the heartland, was the indispensable pillar of the state. And then the military commanders were persuaded. This is certainly a fine piece of literary flair from Sima Qian, but the reality was surely not so simple. The generals could be suppressed, but they could not be persuaded. A more realistic fragment of history is this one. The exalted emperor asked, "My lords, do you know of hunting?" They replied, "We do." "Do you know of hunting dogs?" "We do." The exalted emperor said, "In a hunt, the ones who chase down and kill the beasts are the dogs, but the one who tracks the beasts and points out their location is the man. You, my lords, were merely able to run down the beasts. Your merit is that of a dog. But as for Xiao He, he was the one who tracked and pointed. His merit is that of a man." With his unique gangster flair, Liu Bang cut short all debate. "You are all just dogs. How can a dog compete with its master? Xiao He, at the very least, is my man of merit. I recognize him." Behind these roguish words was Liu Bang's immense determination to suppress the military faction and weaken the power of his generals. This determination, combined with his own brilliant military record, temporarily silenced all opposition.
Later, when it came to the specific calculation of rewards, another problem arose. Cao Zhan's military merits were indeed so outstanding that they amounted to a fief of 10,000 households. Xiao He, no matter how they calculated, only had 8,000. What was to be done? Liu Bang said, simple, grant Xiao He an extra 2,000 households. The reason? Liu Bang thought for a moment. When I was a low-ranking official escorting conscripts to the capital, the other officials all gave me some travel money. But Xiao He was especially good to me. He always gave me an extra 200 coins. He is a good man. Is that reason enough?
It was late February, 196 BC, exactly 6 years since the founding of the Han Dynasty. A heavy snow blanketed the capital, Chang'an. The Imperial Chancellor, Xiao He, braved the blizzard to personally visit the mansion of the Marquis of Huayin, Han Xin. Xiao He confronted him with a cold demand. A messenger reports that the emperor has already slain the rebel Chen Shi in the north. All marquises and officials are required to attend the victory ceremony at the Chang'an Palace. Why are you absent? Han Xin, his mind heavy with dark suspicions and secret plans, pleaded that a severe illness made it impossible for him to travel. But Xiao He was unyielding. Even if you are bedridden, he commanded, you must summon the strength to attend and pay your respects. Han Xin felt trapped. He owed his entire legendary career to Xiao He, the man who had staked his own reputation to recommend him to the emperor years ago. Bound by this heavy debt of patronage, Han Xin eventually relented and set out for the palace. He entered the Chang'an Palace alone, without an army or retinue. The moment he stepped inside, hidden warriors seized and bound him. Accused of treason, the man who had once commanded millions and conquered all of northern China let out a hollow laugh. I regret not listening to the advice to declare independence in the kingdom of Qi. Now I have fallen into the hands of a woman and a petty official. This is fate. Without a trial, Empress Lü ordered the execution. The Marquis of Huayin was beheaded in the bell chamber of the Chang'an Palace. At almost the exact same moment, hundreds of miles to the north in the borderlands of Dai, at a place called Kanhe, another blizzard was raging. Here, at this gateway for northern invaders, the former king Han Xin was leading a joint force of his own rebels and Xiongnu cavalry. He was attempting to break through the pass to support the rebellion of Chen Shi. But a massive, well-equipped Han army stood in his path. The Han general Chai Wu leveled his spear and called out to his former colleague, "The emperor has always been merciful to those who return. You know this better than anyone. Come back to the Han." Looking at the Han banners blotting out the sky and the white wasteland behind him, King Han Xin knew his time had run out. He sighed. The emperor raised me from a commoner to a king. That was my fortune. But at the Battle of Xingyang, I failed to die for my duty and was captured. That was my first crime. When the Xiongnu attacked Mai, I surrendered the city. That was my second crime. Now I lead foreign troops against my own country. That is my third crime. I am hiding in the valleys, begging the barbarians for my life. My longing to return home is like a paralyzed man dreaming of walking, or a blind man wishing to see. The heart desires it, but the situation forbids it. The talking stopped. The war drums thundered. General Chai Wu, possessing superior numbers and knowing Han Xin's tactics, utterly crushed the rebel force. King Han Xin was cut down in the chaos of the battle. Yes, you heard that right. This is not a fabrication. In the early years of the Han Dynasty, there were two men named Han Xin with identical names. One was the Immortal of War, the General Han Xin who conquered the north. The other was a scion of royalty, King Han Xin. Their achievements and timelines were so similar that some historians once hypothesized they were the same person. However, the records are clear. Unlike the commoner General Han Xin, King Han Xin was a legitimate prince of the old Han kingdom. He was the grandson of King Xiang of Han. Before his kingdom fell to the Qin, he was known as Lord Xin. He was a man of imposing height and profound military knowledge. When the Qin Empire collapsed, he joined his relative, King Cheng of Han, who was then being advised by the master strategist Zhang Liang. Han Xin was made a general, but his early career was stifled by the overwhelming power of the Qin. His break came when Liu Bang marched west. Passing through the old Han territories, Liu Bang's military genius helped the Han Restoration Army sweep away the Qin forces. In gratitude, the King Cheng of Han sent Zhang Liang and Han Xin to follow Liu Bang on his campaign to the west. After the fall of Qin, when the empire was divided by Xiang Yu, Liu Bang was made the king of Han. thousands of soldiers followed him into the mountains of the south. Among them were both Han Xins. At that time, the future General Han Xin was still an obscure officer. In contrast, the royal king Han Xin was already a prominent figure. On the march, he gave Liu Bang a piercing strategic insight. "Your soldiers are all from the east. They gaze home day and night. Use this sharp edge of their homesickness, and you can conquer the world." Both Han Xins were geniuses. They both saw the strategic window. After Liu Bang conquered the Guanzhong, he promoted the royal Han Xin to Grand Commandant of Han State and sent him east to reclaim his ancestral lands. King Han Xin proved his worth. He defeated the puppet kings appointed by Xiang Yu and recaptured the entire Han territory. Liu Bang kept his promise and crowned him the king of Han. From then on, he was known to history as King Han Xin, Han Wang Xin. King Han Xin was the first vassal king established and crowned by Liu Bang himself, and the bond between them was extraordinary. When Liu Bang suffered the catastrophic defeat at Pengcheng and other kings betrayed him, King Han Xin remained steadfast. For a long time, he didn't act like a distant king. He acted like Liu Bang's most reliable frontline commander. He held the critical Xinjiang-Chengao line, bearing the brunt of Xiang Yu's main force in a brutal war of attrition. Meanwhile, the other Han Xin, the commoner from Chu and general-in-chief, was entrusted with a monumental task. Leading a corps of newly promoted cavalry commanders, including the fierce Guan Ying, he crossed the Yellow River to begin his campaign. As he marched, the situation at the Xinjiang front deteriorated rapidly. Under the desperate protection of Xiahou Ying, Liu Bang managed to flee the city. Left without its leader, Xinjiang soon fell to the enemy. The Han Imperial censor refused to surrender and was boiled alive by Xiang Yu. In the chaos of the frontline collapse, King Han Xin, the commander on site, chose to surrender to the Chu forces. But this was merely a temporary submission to survive. Not long after, King Han Xin escaped from the Chu camp and fought his way back to the Han side. To his surprise, Liu Bang did not utter a word of blame. Instead, he immediately restored him to his full status and title as the King of Han. From King Han Xin's perspective, could there be a more righteous or loyal lord in the world to follow? Grateful for this grace, he served with absolute devotion for the remainder of the Chu-Han War, acting as Liu Bang's right hand and holding the line at Xinjiang against Xiang Yu's relentless onslaught. While he held the center, General Han Xin conquered the northern states of Wei, Zhao, Dai, Yan, and Qi, completing a massive strategic encirclement. Finally, the various Han armies converged at Gaixia. Xiang Yu committed suicide, and the world was finally unified. Among the many non-Liu kings, Yixing Wang, created during the birth of the Han Dynasty, King Han Xin was the most unique for two reasons. First, he was the only scion of the original 6 royal families to be restored to his ancestral lands. Others who held the title of king, such as the commoner General Han Xin, the rebel-turned-ally Ying Bu, or the guerrilla leader Peng Yue, gained their thrones through sheer military merit. Others, like Zhang Tu, were remnants of Xiang Yu's old system, or like Zhang Er, were long-standing noble allies. None belonged to the ancient royal bloodlines of the warring states. One could say that after the bloodbaths of the Qin-Han transition, the kingdom of Han, the very first to be destroyed by the Qin Empire, became the only one to achieve a true, legitimate restoration. Second, King Han Xin was not just a vassal. He was Liu Bang's direct subordinate, bound by a relationship of intense dependency. Even after the Han Empire was fully established, he continued to act as Liu Bang's political pawn, his vanguard in complex administrative maneuvers. For instance, when the other Han Xin was demoted from King of Chu to the Marquis of Huaiyin, it was King Han Xin who was the first to step forward, petitioning the emperor to crown 4 Liu family princes as the kings of Jing, Chu, Qi, and Dai. This move was the key to the strategic fragmentation of the remaining non-Liu kings. Liu Bang's unwavering trust and King Han Xin's absolute loyalty were rare gems in the treacherous political storms of the early Han. If not for the tragic events that followed, their bond would have been the ultimate historical model of mutual understanding between a ruler and his subject. But alas, in history, there are no what-ifs. Having been stripped of his title as King of Chu, General Han Xin lived a secluded life in the capital, Chang'an. His lifelong dream of being a sovereign had been crushed, leaving him bitter and resentful. Historical records describe him as brooding day and night, consumed by a quiet fury. The veteran generals of the army still held the immortal of war in the highest regard. Even Fan Kuai, the emperor's own brother-in-law, would kneel before Han Xin, addressing him as Your Majesty and referring to himself as Han Xin's servant. But the proud Han Xin looked down on men like Fan Kuai, who had once been a mere butcher. He even resented his former subordinates like Zhou Bo and Guan Ying, the very men who had helped him sweep across the north. He felt insulted to be ranked among them as a mere marque. To him, the title was meaningless. But General Han Xin wasn't the only one feeling the weight of the emperor's suspicion. King Han Xin was about to face a crisis of his own. Once the threat of General Han Xin was neutralized, Liu Bang finally moved forward with his long-awaited mass ennoblement, granting titles to 143 heroes. But for King Han Xin, the reward was a forced relocation. He was ordered to move his entire kingdom from the fertile heartland of Yingchuan to the cold, rugged northern territory of Taiyuan. A quick glance at a map of the early Han explains why. Yingchuan was too strategic. To its north sat the critical front line of Xinjiang. To its northwest was the ancient capital of Luoyang. It was a crossroads connected to the entire empire, a land of 4 wars. No emperor sitting in Chang'an or Luoyang could sleep soundly, knowing such a vital hub was controlled by a vassal king with an independent army. Consequently, forced relocation became the only logical alternative to the total liquidation of the kingdom of Han. In his own mind, Liu Bang likely believed he was being quite generous. Rather than dismantling the kingdom entirely, he granted King Han Xin the Taiyuan region, encompassing a full 31 counties. This was a significant numerical expansion compared to the 20 counties in Yingchuan. From the emperor's perspective, what reason did King Han Xin have to be dissatisfied? Liu Bang had already seen a successful precedent. When the other Han Xin, the commoner general, was transferred from the 73 counties of Qi to the 89 counties of Chu, he had accepted the change without a word. However, there was a fundamental difference between the two men. For General Han Xin, moving from Qi back to Chu had been a glorious homecoming. But for King Han Xin, Yingchuan was his ancestral soil, the resting place of his royal forefathers. For a man of his lineage, abandoning his ancestral home was a far more painful sacrifice than any commoner-turned-general could understand. Yet King Han Xin accepted. The history books don't record his inner thoughts as the order arrived. But while the other 143 marquises were throwing lavish banquets to celebrate their new titles, King Han Xin was packing his bags and mobilizing his army for the march into the freezing north. His bitterness was likely understood by only one other person, the lonely marquis of Huaiyin back in Chang'an. Still, King Han Xin remained Liu Bang's most loyal fighter. He arrived in Taiyuan in early 201 BC. By February, he petitioned the emperor with a bold suggestion. Jinyang, the provincial capital, was too far from the border to respond to a Xiongnu invasion. He requested to move his own capital to Mai, placing himself directly on the front line against the northern nomads. Facing such bravery from a subordinate he had just intentionally suppressed, Liu Bang could only say one word: approved. There is a critical detail here. Mai wasn't actually part of Taiyuan, it belonged to the Kingdom of Dai, and the King of Dai was Liu Shi, the emperor's own elder brother. By moving his capital to Mai, King Han Xin was essentially taking a piece of territory from the emperor's brother. Why did Liu Bang and Liu Shi agree to this? Because they both knew Liu Shi's limitations. Liu Shi was, by all accounts, an excellent farmer, but a terrible king. Later, when Liu Bang held a grand feast at the newly built Weiyang Palace, he openly mocked his father in front of the court. "You always called me a rascal who couldn't manage a household, unlike my brother Liu Shi. Now tell me, father, who has built the greater estate?" The court erupted in laughter. Liu Shi was a farmer at heart, not a warrior king capable of defending the frontier. This was a primary reason Liu Bang sent King Han Xin north. He needed a man of iron to shore up his brother's weak defenses. Liu Bang's northern defense line was now set. The veteran Lu Wan in the northeast, his brother Liu Shi and King Han Xin in the northwest, and his son-in-law Zhang Ao in the powerful kingdom of Zhao to the south. It was a system designed to support one another while also keeping each other in check. But Liu Bang and King Han Xin, both men born south of the Yellow River, had no clear understanding of the true power of the Xiongnu. That autumn, the Xiongnu invaded. To everyone's shock, King Han Xin, a veteran of the Central Plains, found himself rapidly overwhelmed. He repeatedly begged the court for reinforcements. When the legendary Modu Chanyu, the man who had unified the Xiongnu tribes, personally led a massive host to surround Mai, King Han Xin found himself in a desperate struggle for survival. He continued to call for help, while simultaneously opening peace negotiations with the Xiongnu to buy time. Eventually, Liu Bang's reinforcements arrived. But in a suspicious twist of fate, the Xiongnu army withdrew the moment the relief force appeared. To the Han reinforcements, it didn't look like a desperate defense, it looked like a conspiracy. They began to investigate, to spy, and to send back reports of treason. Liu Bang wavered. He hadn't seen the Xiongnu's strength for himself. He wondered, how could the man who fought so brilliantly in the heartland fail so easily on the border? Why did the enemy vanish the moment my troops arrived? Is the situation as dire as he claims, or is something else going on? A year later, a general named Chen Shi was appointed to a northern post. Before leaving, he visited General Han Xin in Chang'an. Han Xin took him into a private courtyard and gave him a chilling piece of advice. The place you are going is where the Empire's finest troops are stationed, and you are the Emperor's most trusted official. If someone says you are rebelling, the Emperor won't believe it. If a second report comes, he will doubt. By the third report, he will be enraged and lead the army himself. These words were a perfect prophecy for the fate of King Han Xin. There was another reason for Liu Bang's growing resentment toward King Han Xin. During the Xiongnu invasion, his brother, the King of Dai, had run away. For deserting his post and leaving the border defenseless, Liu Shi wasn't executed. Instead, he was merely demoted to a marquis. This was the privilege of a family empire. Rewards and punishments for relatives required no logic. But in the early Han, the family empire wasn't yet an established reality. Someone had to take the fall for the northern collapse. Liu Bang chose King Han Xin. He sent a scathing letter to the king. To seek death is not brave, to seek only life is not fit for responsibility. When the enemy attacked Mai, was your strength really not enough to hold? You were in a position of life or death, yet you failed. For this, I hold you accountable. This wasn't just an exaggerated accusation, it was an ultimatum. The fact that this letter was preserved in the official Book of Han suggests it was not a private correspondence, but a public proclamation. Liu Bang wanted to assert his imperial authority and cover for his brother's cowardice. King Han Xin was to be the scapegoat. But every string has a breaking point, and this time Liu Bang pushed too far. The record states, Xin feared execution. He struck a pact with the Xiongnu to attack the Han together. He rebelled, surrendered Mai to the nomads, and attacked Taiyuan. Why did he break? King Han Xin had not wavered when he was a guerrilla fighter in the hills, nor when he climbed the Qinling Mountains, nor when he was trapped in Xinjiang, nor even when he escaped alone from the enemy camp. But now, as a king with tens of thousands of troops, he was consumed by fear. The reason is clear. The Liu Bang of the war was different from the Liu Bang on the throne. The wartime Liu Bang was a rascal with no morals, but he was willing to give away half the world to win. The enthroned Liu Bang had changed. He was now calculating how to consolidate power for his own bloodline, breaking promises and cornering his old allies. King Han Xin realized that a day might come when even his absolute loyalty would be discarded for the sake of the Liu family. This was the true source of his terror. The northern frontier had begun to crumble. When news of the betrayal reached Chang'an, Liu Bang was consumed by shock and rage. He donned his armor once again and summoned his legendary circle of generals, Xiahou Ying, Zhou Bo, Fan Kuai, and Guan Ying. He would lead the army north himself to crush the rebellion. While Liu Bang was mobilizing, King Han Xin and his joint forces of Han and Xiongnu troops had already overrun Taiyuan and pushed deep into the southern Shandong region. But Liu Bang once again proved why his military genius was far above the average of his era. He blocked the rebel advance at Tongdi. Then, executing a brilliant strategic flanking maneuver, he bypassed the main enemy force through the Kingdom of Dai to the east and launched a surprise raid on King Han Xin's headquarters. The rebel army was shattered, a key general was slain, and King Han Xin fled across the border into Xiongnu territory. Liu Bang's forces continued their sweep, reaching Jinyang. In a second decisive battle near Pingcheng, they crushed the remnants of the rebel and Xiongnu forces. Riding a wave of confidence, Liu Bang decided to push further north to engage the main Xiongnu host. He sent light cavalry scouts ahead. They returned with reports that the Xiongnu were in total disarray, leaving behind only the old, the weak, and the sick. Traditional history claims Liu Bang grew complacent and allowed his elite vanguard to outpace the main army. But for a general who had survived the bloody, treacherous wars against Xiang Yu, would he really fall for such a simple ruse? Records say a scholar warned him this was a trap, but Liu Bang exploded. "Nonsense! You are demoralizing my army!" Why would a battle-hardened leader walk into a trap that even a novice could see? He certainly had the capital for confidence. His elite Lanzhong cavalry possessed close-quarters combat skills that no light nomad cavalry could match. And behind him stood an army of 320,000. But there was a deeper reason. Liu Bang needed a total victory. He needed to prove to the world that the Xiongnu, the very force that had terrified King Hanxin, were weak and easily beaten. He wanted to show that King Hanxin's defection was an act of cowardice, not the result of the emperor's own merciless pressure. This was one of the rare moments in Liu Bang's life where emotional need overrode rational analysis. The last time this happened was at the disaster of Pengcheng, and once again, he would pay the price. As he led his vanguard forward, Liu Bang fell directly into the trap at Mount Baideng. Thousands of Xiongnu riders suddenly emerged from the snow-shrouded peaks, surrounding the emperor in a ring of steel. The historian Sima Qian's account of this siege is highly dramatized, including tales of secret bribes to the Xiongnu queen. In reality, the siege of Baideng was likely a massive, mutual surprise. Liu Bang had not imagined the Xiongnu were truly this powerful, nor that they could mobilize cavalry on such a scale. It exceeded his imagination as a man from the southern Chu heartlands. Conversely, Modu Chanyu had not imagined the Han vanguard was this tough. A few thousand heavy Han cavalrymen displayed a combat power far superior to his own tribal warriors, who were better at raiding than sustained combat. It was a clash between two powers that did not yet understand each other, meeting at the wrong time and the wrong place. In the end, no major battle broke out. After testing each other's strength, a truce was called. The Xiongnu opened a path. Under the cover of the blizzard, the Han chariots and the elite cavalry, with every crossbow loaded with 2 bolts, retreated in perfect order. This grand confrontation, which could have involved over 500,000 men, ended in a ghostly silence. Having failed to eliminate the traitor King Hanxin, Liu Bang retreated south. On his way through the kingdom of Zhao, governed by his son-in-law Zhang Ao, the frustrated emperor was in a foul mood. He acted with his old rascal arrogance, deeply insulting Zhang Ao. The ministers of Zhao, old loyalists who had served Zhang Ao's family for decades, were incensed. To them, their only lord was the king of Zhao. The emperor was a distant and disrespectful figure. They plotted to assassinate Liu Bang, but the emperor's intuition and pure luck allowed him to escape the attempt. A year later, the plot was discovered. The chancellor of Zhao and Zhang Ao were brought to Chang'an in chains. Every Zhao minister stubbornly insisted that their king, Zhang Ao, knew nothing of the plot. Even Empress Lü pleaded for her son-in-law for the sake of her daughter. Liu Bang snapped back. "If Zhang Ao really became the son of heaven, do you think he would care about your daughter?" Yet beneath the rage was a cold reality. Liu Bang could not legally convict Zhang Ao, nor the ministers, aside from the mastermind, because they were Zhao officials. Their actions were consistent with their loyalty to the king of Zhao. There were no precedents for how an emperor should handle this. Liu Bang eventually demoted Zhang Ao to a marquis, but released and even promoted many of the Zhao officials. To secure the north, he appointed his favorite young son, Liu Ruyi, as the new king of Zhao. But Ruyi was only 10. The real power went to Chen Xi, who was promoted to Chancellor of Zhao and given command over the military and government of both Zhao and Dai. Chen Xi's origins are murky in the records, likely an intentional erasure after his rebellion. But from the fragments, we can piece together a picture. First, he was a veteran commander from the Chu-Han Wars, likely a mid to high-level general. Second, he had performed brilliantly for the empire, leading Han troops to defeat the remnants of King Hanxin's forces and reclaiming the northern territories. Third, during his long years of frontier warfare, he gathered a following of people dissatisfied with central authority, particularly wealthy merchants who brought him funds, manpower, and their own grievances. As Chen Shi's fame grew, so did the emperor's suspicion. Reports of his massive entourage, his extravagance, and his secret dealings with the Xiongnu began to flood the capital. It was exactly as General Han Xin had predicted. The emperor would eventually doubt, and then he would rage. In 197 BC, Chen Shi rebelled. He took command of the northern border armies and declared himself the king of Dai. Liu Bang was genuinely shaken. Chen Shi was once my trusted envoy. He lamented. How could he betray our cause? But the problem had to be solved. Once again, Liu Bang marched north to war. Records state that Chen Shi's rebellion was partly the result of constant persuasion from King Han Xin, who sent agents to goad him into action. When Chen Shi rose, King Han Xin led his own troops south to support him. This led to the Battle of Canhe, where he was slain by the Han general Chai Wu. His family remained in exile among the Xiongnu for years, only returning to Han territory later to be enfeoffed as marquises. And what of the other Han Xin? Years earlier, General Han Xin had told Chen Shi, "I will rise from within for you, and the world can be ours." While Liu Bang was away fighting Chen Shi in the north, General Han Xin stayed in the capital, claiming illness. He plotted to forge an imperial decree to arm prisoners and slaves and launch a sudden strike on the central government while the city was empty of troops. But a servant betrayed the secret. Empress Lü and Xiao Hu acted swiftly, luring Han Xin into a trap and executing him. Is it true? Would the man who refused to rebel when he held a massive army as a king really choose to rebel now as a lonely marquis? This has been a debate among historians for 2,000 years. Was General Han Xin truly a traitor, or was this a framed execution? The absolute truth is lost to time. But in terms of political logic, the rebellion was likely real. General Han Xin was not fighting for the throne, he was fighting as a resistance. He was part of a dying class of old aristocrats who saw the noose of imperial centralization tightening around their necks. They weren't trying to become the new emperor, they were trying to break the suffocating grip of the Great Unification. That is why they didn't rebel when they were kings. They only rebelled once they had lived in the capital for years and truly understood the cold, crushing logic of absolute central power. Both Han Xins, the general in the capital and the king on the frontier, saw the same dead end. Whose fault was it? In a way, no one's. China needed this centralized system to survive, but the system forced everyone into conflict. It was, in its early form, a system that ran counter to human nature itself. When Liu Bang returned from his campaign and heard that Han Xin was dead, the records say he was both relieved and saddened. Relief came first, for a threat was gone. Then came the pity, for a comrade was lost. The tragedy of the two Han Xins was the price paid for the birth of a unified empire. Early summer, 196 BC. Liu Bang personally led a grand army and defeated Chen Shi, the chancellor of Zhao who had rebelled and declared independence. Upon returning to the Weiyang Palace in Chang'an, he learned of the death of Han Xin, the Marquis of Huaiyin. When Empress Lü and Chancellor Xiao He personally explained to him the details of Han Xin's rebellion, Liu Bang's expression was complex, filled with a mixture of grief and joy. He stood up, turned his back to everyone, and gazed alone at the Qinling Mountains outside the window. It took a long time before he accepted this fait accompli. He issued an edict stating that Chancellor Xiao He had acted with merit in suppressing the rebellion, promoting him to the position of Counselor-in-Chief, Xianggu, granting him an additional fief of 5,000 households, and assigning a commandant to lead 500 soldiers as the Counselor-in-Chief's guard. Prior to this, Xiao He already ranked first among the meritorious officials in terms of rewards, with a fief of 10,000 households, and had been granted the special privileges of wearing a sword and shoes while ascending the palace hall and entering the court without trotting. Colleagues came to congratulate him in an endless stream. Only a destitute former marquis of the Qin dynasty, upon seeing Xiao He, woke the dreamer with a single sentence. Calamity begins from this moment. The emperor is suppressing rebellions on the front lines, personally braving arrows and stones. You are far away in the rear, yet he sends you guards. Isn't this suspicion of you? Are these 500 guards here to protect you or to monitor you?" Xiao He immediately followed his plan, returned all the rewards, and donated a portion of his private property to aid military expenses. Historical records state, the emperor was then greatly pleased. This was not the first time Xiao He had listened to advice and deliberately curried favor with Liu Bang. As early as the beginning of the Chu-Han contention, when Liu Bang led his army east out of Hangu Pass, Xiao He alone guarded Guanzhong. On one hand, it was precisely because of Xiao He's continuous supply of provisions and manpower that Liu Bang could maintain his front lines and recover amidst repeated defeats. But on the other hand, handing over the entire Guanzhong, Hanzhong, and Bashu regions to Xiao He alone, who could truly rest easy? Therefore, historical records here fully reflect Liu Bang's contradiction. He gave Xiao He a status akin to a prince-regent, unimaginable in later imperial systems, yet at the same time constantly sending messengers back to inquire after the chancellor. Someone with insight pointed out to Xiao He that this clearly meant Liu Bang was becoming suspicious of him. Consequently, Xiao He immediately sent every able-bodied male capable of fighting from his entire clan to Liu Bang's army. These were the Xiao family's hostages. Historical records state, the king of Han was greatly pleased. So much so that later, when rewarding meritorious officials, Liu Bang insisted on ranking Xiao He above Chao Shen, who bore over 70 battle wounds. One important reason was, you generals mostly followed me as individuals, at most with 2 or 3 family members. Xiao He, however, had dozens of people from his entire clan risking their lives for me. Can this compare?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to China Puzzle. This indeed cannot compare. Looking at the entirety of ancient Chinese history, ruler-minister relationships like that of Liu Bang and Xiao He, who knew and respected each other and ultimately met a good end, number only a very few. Especially against the backdrop of the Great Purge in the early Han Dynasty, it is an even more rare and precious miracle. However, the birth of a miracle always stems from the coincidence of chance rather than inevitability. In reality, the bond between Xiao He and Liu Bang nearly shattered. Liu Bang was driven to the brink of madness, and Xiao He came within inches of being beheaded for treason.
Liu Bang's return to the capital this time was after he had personally led the army to defeat Chen Shi's main forces. His brother-in-law Fan Kuai, continuing to lead the Han army in pursuit of the rebel forces. Immediately after, Liu Bang enfeoffed his 4th son, the merely 8-year-old Liu Heng, as the new king of Dai. By this point, all the vassal states north of the Yellow River belonged to the Liu Imperial clan. The king of Qi was Liu Bang's eldest son Liu Fei. The king of Zhao was Liu Bang's 3rd son Liu Ruyi. The king of Dai was Liu Heng. The only one remaining was the state of Yan, held by Lu Wan. However, considering that Lu Wan had been on good terms with the Liu family since their father's generation, was born on the same year, same month, and same day as Liu Bang, and had been repeatedly entrusted with heavy responsibilities throughout Liu Bang's uprising, in a certain sense, he might have been even closer to Liu Bang than Liu Bang's own second brother, Liu Shi. Adding in the king of Jing, Liu Jia, and the king of Chu, Liu Jiao, in the south, the vast majority of the world had already become the Liu family's world. Only 3 kings of different surnames remained: Peng Yue, the king of Liang; Ying Bu, the king of Huainan; and Wu Chen, the king of Changsha. Among these 3, the one with the most unique status should be considered Peng Yue, the king of Liang. Among the various vassal kings of the early Han, his origins were the lowliest. Even Ying Bu, who had his face tattooed as punishment for breaking the law, was the son-in-law of the magistrate of Po County during the Qin dynasty, who was Wu Rui, the later first king of Changsha. Only Peng Yue is explicitly recorded in historical texts as having started as a bandit, gathering a crowd in the Jui Marsh. It was only after the world fell into chaos, when Liu Bang encountered Peng Yue while attacking Changyi, that the two combined their forces to jointly attack Changyi. Note that at this time, the two merely had a cooperative relationship. Therefore, when the attack on Changyi failed, the two parted ways, Peng Yue retreated into the Jui Marsh to rest and recover. Later on, after the Qin dynasty perished and war broke out between Chu and Han, amidst such chaos, Liu Bang and Peng Yue established a cooperative relationship once again. Liu Bang gave Peng Yue the empty title of Chancellor of Wei and sent him to attack Xiang Yu's rear in the Liang and Chu regions. In this process, Peng Yue fully utilized his advantages as a bandit king, using elusive guerrilla tactics to repeatedly disrupt Xiang Yu's rear. But here arose the problem. Liu Bang was only the king of Han at the time. Did Peng Yue, the Chancellor of Wei, absolutely have to listen to him? Therefore, history books left a thought-provoking sentence. He occupied the Liang region, remaining neutral, acting both for Han and for Chu. Perhaps it was precisely this ambiguous, non-committal attitude that caused Xiang Yu not to pour all his strength into first exterminating this visceral threat, and also caused Liu Bang to have no choice but to send Lu Wan and Liu Jia to lead troops into the Chu heartland to open up a new second front, in addition to Peng Yue. In other words, Peng Yue indeed had merit with Liu Bang during the Chu-Han War, but he remained only a lukewarm ally. In summary, Peng Yue, the king of Liang, a commoner bandit with no foundation, was neither Liu Bang's kin nor old friend, nor was he one of the earliest subjects. From Liu Bang's perspective, he was merely an ally who had made great contributions, and this contribution had already been compensated by enfeoffing him as the king of Liang, perhaps even overcompensated. Historical records state that not long after Han Xin, the Marquis of Huayin, was killed, in the summer of 196 BC, the grand servant, Taipu, of the Liang state fled, arrived in Chang'an, and secretly reported to the imperial court, "Peng Yue, the king of Liang, is plotting rebellion." The reason for the rebellion was that during Liu Bang's personal campaign against Chen Xi, he conscripted troops from the Liang state. However, Peng Yue claimed illness and only sent a general to lead the Liang army there. Liu Bang was furious and blamed him. Fearing execution, Peng Yue then plotted rebellion with his subordinates. This reason is truly far-fetched. More importantly, historical materials explicitly record Peng Yue indeed feared Liu Bang and prepared to go personally to apologize for his offense. His generals indeed advised him to raise troops and rebel, but Peng Yue did not listen. In the political purge of the early Han Dynasty, Peng Yue is the only unjust and false case explicitly recorded in history books. But this did not affect the outcome. Liu Bang sent a team of elite cavalry posing as an envoy mission to the Liang state. Peng Yue, who had no intention of rebelling in the first place, was arrested amidst his carelessness. Perhaps because the interrogation indeed revealed no facts of rebellion, or perhaps Liu Bang still retained some kindness. In short, Peng Yue was merely stripped of his titles to become a commoner and exiled to Sichuan.
But Peng Yue did not make it to Sichuan. He met Empress Lü halfway and pleaded with her. Empress Lü agreed to his request, but behind the scenes she added fuel to the fire and laid a murderous hand on him. In the end, Peng Yue was killed. Exterminate Yue's clan, abolish the state.
Empress Lü not only pushed for Peng Yue's execution, but went a step further by having his flesh minced into meat paste and distributed to the various vassal kings. Undoubtedly, it severely challenged the psychological limits of all the vassal kings. When the messenger delivered the box containing the meat paste to Yingbu, the king of Huainan, he had just returned from hunting with his men. The records state he was greatly terrified. What did Yingbu fear? The answer was all too obvious. Among the three kings of different surnames enfeoffed for military merit, he was the last one left. Yingbu decided he could not sit and wait for death. He began secretly mobilizing troops, stockpiling provisions, and accumulating strength in the border commanderies, preparing to actually launch a rebellion. Once again, a subordinate of the king of Huainan betrayed Yingbu due to a personal grudge. He fled to the imperial court and reported that the king of Huainan was preparing to rebel. The historical records here are very interesting. The king of Yan, the king of Chu, the king of Zhao, the king of Liang, the chancellor of Zhao, with so many people rebelling, the court seemed unsurprised. Yet, when it came to a powerful figure like Yingbu, the entire court believed, Bu should not have done this. Perhaps hatred and grudges have falsely accused him. When the vassal king most likely and most capable of rebelling actually did so, neither Liu Bang nor Xiao He dared or wanted to believe it. So why were you so certain and even preemptive before? But Ying Bu, a hero of his time, soon dispelled everyone's doubts. Knowing he had been reported, Ying Bu swiftly raised troops and launched a lightning raid on the neighboring state of Jing. Liu Jia, the king of Jing, was also a general capable of fighting his way through the Chu-Han War, but facing Ying Bu's offensive, he was defeated and killed, and the state of Jing was destroyed. Ying Bu then swept up the surrendered Jing troops and charged toward the state of Chu. Liu Jiao, the king of Chu, sent 3 armies to meet the attack. 1 was destroyed, 2 routed, and the state of Chu was crippled. In a very short time, Ying Bu occupied vast territories south of the Huai River, even surpassing Qiang Yu at his peak. This hero, perhaps the only one of that era who could wrestle on the battlefield with Xiang Yu, Liu Bang, and Han Xin, displayed terrifying dominance. He told his subordinates, "The Emperor Liu Bang is old and weary of war. He definitely will not lead troops personally to fight me. The only ones I worried about were Han Xin and Peng Yue, but they are both dead. The rest are not worth fearing." Facts proved Ying Bu's judgment correct. He was perhaps the most likely rebel among all the vassal kings Liu Bang had envisioned, and Liu Bang had made some specific arrangements. But when this day truly arrived, Liu Bang was still shaken. At this time, Liu Bang was over 60 years old. More than a decade of military life had left him physically and mentally exhausted. Ying Bu's rebellion was a huge blow to him. He was old and even sicker, to the point where riding a horse was difficult. Therefore, he made a decision. The Crown Prince would lead the campaign. History does not record Liu Bang's true thoughts, but the fact is, the struggle over succession between Crown Prince Liu Ying and Liu Ruyi, the king of Zhao, had reached a fever pitch. Empress Lu's faction, after close consultation, firmly believed that the Crown Prince absolutely could not leave the capital, let alone face a terrifying opponent like Ying Bu. The result would be either death in battle or being stripped of the Crown Prince position after a defeat. Therefore, Empress Lu's faction did their utmost to stop Liu Bang's initial intention. If the Crown Prince didn't go, who would? "Though your majesty is ill, you can be carried in a covered carriage, lying down to supervise. The generals would not dare not do their best. Though it is hard for your majesty, force yourself for the sake of your wife and children." When Empress Lu said these words to Liu Bang, we believe Liu Bang's heart must have been chilled to the bone. Yet he was powerless to refute. Looking across the realm, indeed only he himself had a chance of defeating Ying Bu. Thus, the old and sick Liu Bang set out on campaign. As he was about to leave the capital, Zhang Liang, whom he valued most, came to see him off despite his own illness. Liu Bang fully expected Zhang Liang to offer another brilliant strategy to turn the tide, but Zhang Liang only said, "You are leading troops away from the capital. Please appoint the Crown Prince as general to supervise the military forces of the entire Guanzhong region." With mixed feelings, Liu Bang agreed and appointed Zhang Liang as the junior tutor to assist the Crown Prince. He seemed to have sensed that behind him, a massive, invisible net was tightening, and he was powerless to resist.
Perhaps it was precisely under the combined influence of so much helplessness and resentment that when Liu Bang met Ying Bu on the battlefield, he asked that question, "Why must you rebel? Indeed, why do you all oppose me? Why do you all want to destroy the magnificent enterprise I founded?" Ying Bu replied coldly, "Of course, because I also want to be the emperor."
The battle with Ying Bu once again demonstrated Liu Bang's genius military capability. He definitely couldn't beat Xiang Yu, and he might not have beaten Han Xin, but apart from these two, no one else in the world could defeat Liu Bang on the battlefield. Ying Bu was no exception. After several major battles, Ying Bu's entire army collapsed. He fled into the Changsha state with a few hundred men, hoping to seek refuge with his brother-in-law, Wu Chen, the king of Changsha. As the weakest among the vassal kings of different surnames, how could the Changsha state have the strength and courage to hide Ying Bu? Persuaded by his subjects, Wu Chen pretended to take Ying Bu in, then assassinated him on the way. Ying Bu died, and the Huainan kingdom was transferred to Liu Bang's seventh son, Liu Zhang. Wu Chen also preserved his own fiefdom. This weak and insignificant Changsha state was even passed down for 5 generations, lasting nearly 50 years before being abolished. Yingbu was dead, and news came from the north that Fan Kuai's general had beheaded Chen Qi. The world seemed finally at peace. As soon as he arrived in Chang'an, countless letters of complaint flew in like snowflakes, and even commoners blocked Liu Bang's carriage to petition. There was only one theme. Counselor-in-Chief Xiao Hu had been forcibly buying people's fields in Guanzhong at low prices. Public anger was boiling, and they asked the emperor to punish him. When Xiao He personally came to welcome Liu Bang laughed heartily, showed Xiao He all these letters of petition, and then said, "Counselor-in-Chief, you are truly doing great deeds for the common people." This was the 3rd time Xiao He had soiled himself in front of Liu Bang. As the empire's de facto highest administrative official, he had keenly sensed the extremely tense atmosphere in the court. Therefore, while Liu Bang was attacking Yingbu, he once again heeded advice and sought safety by committing minor crimes like corruption, bribery, and plundering people's wealth. Sure enough, once again, the emperor was then greatly pleased. Perhaps Liu Bang seemed to be in a genuinely good mood, or perhaps the usually cautious Xiao He had a momentary lapse in judgment. At this critical juncture, he actually continued to submit a memorial, petitioning on behalf of the people. "The city of Chang'an is cramped. I see that many areas in the Shanglin Imperial Park are currently empty. Why not clear these areas for the common people to cultivate as farmland?" For the highest administrative official to plan for the common people down to such minute details, he indeed deserved the title of a virtuous minister for the ages. And what was Liu Bang's reaction? Liu Bang flew into a rage. "How much money did you take from the merchants? You dare touch my Shanglin Park?" He then ordered Xiao Hu to be thrown into prison and shackled. This was simply no different from the mad kings and tyrants in history books. Fortunately, there were still those who dared to risk death to admonish him. A minister asked Liu Bang what great crime Xiao He had committed to be treated so roughly. Liu Bang said, "What should a chancellor do? All the good should be attributed to the emperor, and all the blame should be kept for himself. Xiao He petitioning for the people like this is currying favor with the common people. Is this a very twisted political logic? Yet it is not surprising. A monarch over 60, frail and sickly, did not see a chancellor loyal to the country, loyal to himself. He saw a partner with a deep background, just like himself. He saw an executive CEO who controlled all the administrative lifelines of the world. To guard against him, Liu Bang had even deliberately provoked conflicts between Xiao Shen, the leader of the military merit faction, and Xiao He, these 2 former colleagues from Pei County, during the enfeoffment process. But besides Xiao Shen, there were Lu Wan, Zhou Bo, Wang Ling, and Fan Kuai. If trouble arose in the world, would they choose him or choose Xiao He? Liu Bang in his prime would not think this way because he felt he was omnipotent. Liu Bang in his declining old age would definitely think this way because he knew his days were numbered. Already bordering on madness, he no longer knew who his enemies were, where they were, or what they wanted to do. The minister remonstrated with Liu Bang. "How could the counselor-in-chief rebel? When you led troops to fight Xiang Yu, Chen Shi, and Yingbu, and left him to guard Guanzhong, he didn't rebel. Now that you've returned victorious, he thinks of rebelling. He thinks of planning for himself." Liu Bang's remaining rationality finally overcame his fear of the future. That same day, he issued an edict to release Xiao He. The cautious Xiao He went barefoot to the palace hall to thank the emperor. Liu Bang said, "I did this only to prove to the world that I am a muddled ruler, while you, counselor-in-chief, are the virtuous minister." Behind this explanation, which bordered on acting out of spite, lay nothing but helplessness. There is a small historical detail that many overlook. Historical records do not state how long Xiao Hu was imprisoned this time, nor do they record whether he was dismissed or demoted after Liu Bang released him. But history explicitly records another item. Just at this time, Liu Bang's brother-in-law, Fan Kuai, was temporarily appointed to counselor-in-chief of the Han Empire.
Why would a valiant general who led charges, be appointed as the administrative head, because Liu Bang needed Fan Kuai to replace him and lead a grand army to suppress a rebellion, so he had to give him a status below one person and above all. So where was the rebel army that Fan Kuai needed to suppress?
During Fan Kuai's pursuit of the remnants of Chen Shi's rebel army, a deputy general of Chen Shi was captured. He secretly informed the court that Lu Wan, the king of Yan, had made a private agreement with Chen Shi to deliberately delay the war, intending to maintain the enemy's presence to enhance his own importance, and furthermore that he had connections with the Xiongnu and the son of the fugitive former king of Yan, Zhang Tu. Regarding this childhood friend born on the same year, same month, and same day as himself planning a rebellion, Liu Bang certainly dared not believe it easily. He ordered Lu Wan to be summoned to the capital. But Lu Wan claimed illness and did not come. This was simply a rerun of all previous rebellion cases. Even so, Liu Bang still did not believe it. He sent high officials to the state of Yan to welcome Lu Wan while investigating whether Lu Wan was rebelling. Lu Wan once again refused to enter the capital. He said to his attendants, "In the world, only the king of Changsha and I do not bear the surname Liu. Now the emperor is critically ill. The deaths of Han Xin and Peng Yue were all Empress Lu's doing. I cannot go back. If I go back, I will certainly be killed by Empress Lu." But unfortunately, the high official sent to investigate Lu Wan happened to be a favorite of Empress Lu. Upon returning to the capital, he told Liu Bang that Lu Wan would definitely rebel. Even then, Liu Bang still did not believe it. But shortly after, Xiongnu people captured at the border also confirmed that Lu Wan, the king of Yan, had indeed sent people to liaise with the Xiongnu. The evidence was conclusive and irrefutable. Historical records state, the emperor said, Lu Wan has indeed rebelled. The historical texts, usually sparing with words, do not record Liu Bang's state of mind at this moment, but we can fully appreciate his despair, his heart-wrenching pain, and his unwillingness to accept it. The surrendered generals he subdued rebelled, his former allies rebelled, his comrades rebelled, even his childhood friend, the person born on the same year, same month, and same day, who was as close as a brother. Had he also rebelled? Liu Bang did not want to accept this fact, but he had to respond. He was already terminally ill, and during the campaign against Ying Bu, he was wounded by an arrow again, which further aggravated his condition. He did not even have the possibility of lying in a carriage to lead the campaign personally. He looked around the court and the country. He could only choose Fan Kuai. Fan Kuai might not be equal to Guan Ying, Zhou Bo, or Chai Wu, but he was his brother-in-law, a fellow villager who fought alongside him all the way from Pei County, and the valiant general who saved him at the feast at Hong Gate. Who else could he choose but him? Thus, in the second month of 195 BC, Fan Kuai led the grand army out on campaign. Remaining in the Changle Palace, Liu Bang grew weaker day by day. A famous doctor diagnosed him and wanted to administer medicine to save him. Liu Bang, however, abused him, saying, "I, a commoner, took the world wielding a 3-foot sword. Is this not the mandate of heaven? Life lies with heaven. Even the legendary doctor would be of no use." He heavily rewarded the doctor and then resigned himself to fate. What was he waiting for? Was he waiting for Fan Kuai to return with Lu Wan's head to report the completion of the mission? Or was he waiting for Fan Kuai to clear Lu Wan of the false charges? But he did not wait to see it. When Fan Kuai attacked the state of Yan, he advanced with irresistible force. Lu Wan, who perhaps never intended to truly rebel, suffered a crushing defeat. In the end, he took a few thousand cavalry and his wife and children and ran to the edge of the Great Wall. But he did not leave the territory of the Han Empire, nor did he enter Xiongnu territory yet. He said he was waiting for Liu Bang to recover from his illness so he could personally go to Chang'an to explain and apologize. But he did not wait to see that either. What they waited for was another secret report. At the end of the 3rd month, someone informed against Fan Kuai to Liu Bang, saying that Fan Kuai had already made preparations to dispatch troops to slaughter Lady Qi and the king of Zhao, Liu Ruyi, who were contending for power with Empress Lu as soon as Liu Bang died. Liu Bang was furious. He immediately dispatched Chen Ping and Zhou Bo to rush day and night to the army in Yan. He wanted Zhou Bo to replace Fan Kuai in command of the army, and he wanted Chen Ping to immediately behead Fan Kuai, this traitor. Chen Ping did not execute Liu Bang's decree. He let Zhou Bo take over the army and then brought Fan Kuai back to the capital. While they were still on the way, the news arrived. On June 1st, 195 BC, Emperor Gaozu of Han, Liu Bang, passed away in the Changle Palace. Chen Ping and Fan Kuai both breathed a sigh of relief. They spurred their horses and traveled day and night to rush back to Chang'an to meet Empress Lü.
On his way back from defeating Yingbu, Liu Bang made a special trip to Pei County. He drank and made merry with the elders of his hometown, staying for over 10 days. This should have been one of the few wonderful times in Liu Bang's later years. At the banquet in Pei County, seized by a sudden impulse, Liu Bang personally played the zhu and sang a poem he composed on the spot. This poem has only 3 lines, yet it has been sung for over 2,000 years. Perhaps at this moment, this was Liu Bang's truest inner voice.
This is a story about devotion and betrayal. It's a problem that wives in China have faced for over 2,000 years and in many ways still haven't escaped. She was the very first empress in Chinese history, the mother of the Han Empire. But she's most famous for a truly horrific story. She had her rival's arms and legs chopped off, turned her into a human pig, and threw her in a toilet. This isn't some wild rumor. It's a brutal act written down in every official history book. So how does a violent, twisted monster become China's first empress? Or maybe the real question is, what turned her into one? Here's something you might not know. China's first empress wasn't married to China's first emperor. She was married to his enemy, a man named Liu Bang. Back in 221 BC, the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, had just united China. But he ruled with an iron fist, using harsh laws, burning books, and burying scholars alive. The moment he died, the whole empire just exploded. Warlords, nobles, peasants, everyone was fighting for the pieces. It was an age of heroes, villains, and guys just trying to get ahead. In a place called Pei County, a rich man named Liu Gong moved his family to escape some enemies. And then he did something that shocked everyone. He married his daughter, Liu Ji, to the local precinct chief. This guy, Liu Bang, was already 41. He was born a farmer and had a small-time job, kind of like a neighborhood cop. The history books say he was generous and outgoing, which was basically a nice way of saying he was lazy, hated real work, and loved to party on other people's dime. Even worse, Liu Bang was a terrible choice for a husband. He was 20 years older than Liu Ji, and he already had a kid with his mistress. And Liu Ji. She was from a good family, well-educated, young, and beautiful. So, what gives? The official story is a bit magical. Liu Gong could read faces. He looked at Liu Bang and saw a great future, so he ignored everyone, including his own wife, and made the match. But let's be real. That story was probably made up later to make Liu Bang look good. The truth was likely much simpler. As an outsider, Liu Gong needed protection. His daughter was his bargaining chip, and Liu Bang, the precinct chief, was more than just a cop. In a lawless place like Pei County, he was basically the local gangster boss. Liu Gong wasn't betting on Liu Bang's future. He was buying his present safety and influence. That's why he turned down the county magistrate who also wanted to marry his daughter. An official could be transferred tomorrow. A local boss with deep roots was a sure thing. And Liu Ji was the price. Her life was now tied to this 41-year-old thug. After marrying Liu Bang, Liu Ji immediately stopped being a rich man's daughter. She ran the house and had 2 kids with him. But she quickly learned that the man she married would never give her a quiet life. Soon, Liu Bang got an assignment. Take a group of prisoners to a labor camp. Under the Qin's brutal laws, this was a death sentence. The trip was long, and prisoners kept escaping. Liu Bang knew that by the time he got there, he'd be executed anyway for losing them. So he made a call. He let the rest of the prisoners go, and with a few guys who stuck with him, he disappeared into the swamps. He was now an outlaw, a wanted man. And Liu Ji? Her husband was a fugitive, and she paid the price. The angry magistrate had her arrested and thrown in jail. Just imagine it. She was a lady from a good family, now a prisoner. The history books even say a jailer tried to assault her, and she was only saved by another guard's help. The man she married hadn't brought her honor, he'd brought her shame. She had every reason to hate him, but she didn't. After Liu Bang's friends secretly got her released, she didn't run away. She took care of everything. She stayed at home, caring for their children and Liu Bang's elderly father. She even risked her life, sneaking food and supplies to her husband hiding in the mountains. And she helped him create a legend. They said that no matter where Liu Bang hid, Liu Ji could always find him. He asked her how. She said, "Wherever you are, there's always a dragon-shaped cloud in the sky above you. I just follow the cloud and I find you." This was almost certainly a PR stunt to boost morale. And Liu Ji was in on it. While Liu Bang was still just a wanted man, she was already building his brand as the son of heaven. She was showing the world she wasn't just his wife. She was his partner in crime, the first person to believe in his destiny. She had pushed all her chips to the center of the table. As the empire fell apart, Liu Bang's crew got bigger. He wasn't just a fugitive anymore. He was a rebel leader. But legends don't win wars. He needed a real army. That's when Liu Ji's family put more money on the table. Her 2 brothers, Liu Zhe and Liu Shiji, joined Liu Bang right away, bringing their own men, money, and connections. They became his top generals. But the toughest guy in the Liu family network was her brother-in-law, Fan Kuai. Fan Kuai was a dog butcher, a tough guy from Liu Bang's hometown, and his most loyal friend. Now married to Lu Ji's sister, he was family. He was Liu Bang's bodyguard and his fiercest warrior. The Lu family became the core of Liu Bang's crew, and soon Fan Kuai would save Liu Bang's life at the most famous dinner party in Chinese history, the Feast at Honggate. The Qin dynasty was gone. The two strongest rebel leaders, the noble, undefeated overlord Xiang Yu and the clever peasant-born Liu Bang, met outside the capital. Xiang Yu invited Liu Bang to a peace banquet. It was an ambush. At the dinner, Xiang Yu's advisor kept signaling him to give the order to kill. Xiang Yu's cousin started a sword dance, getting closer and closer to Liu Bang. You could feel the tension. Just then, Fan Kuai, Lu Ji's brother-in-law, burst in, fully armed. He shoved the guards aside and stared down the most feared warrior in China. "You're a backstabber," he roared. "Liu Bang took the capital for you, and instead of rewarding him, you're trying to kill him." Xiang Yu, the great overlord, was completely thrown off by the butcher's guts. He awkwardly called off the assassination and even gave Fan Kuai a drink, praising his courage. Liu Bang took his chance. He pretended to go to the bathroom, and with Fan Kuai's help, he escaped the banquet and saved his own neck. The ambush failed and the war was on, a brutal 4-year civil war, and Lu Ji's family kept backing Liu Bang all the way. And Lu Ji, she became, for a time, a spoil of war. In 205 BC, Liu Bang was crushed in a battle at Pengcheng. His massive army was wiped out by a tiny force led by Xiang Yu. Liu Bang ran for his life. In the chaos, Xiang Yu's army captured his family. Lu Ji and Liu Bang's old father were now hostages. In the confusion, Lu Ji's 2 children were luckily found and put on Liu Bang's escape carriage. But with the enemy right behind them and the horses worn out, Liu Bang, to speed up his getaway, literally kicked his own son and daughter out of the moving carriage. Liu Bang got away, but Lu Ji and his father didn't. They spent years as prisoners in Xiang Yu's camp. During that time, something even colder happened. To make Liu Bang surrender, Xiang Yu dragged his father to the front line. He set up a giant pot and yelled, "Liu Bang, surrender now or I'll boil your father alive." Across the river, Liu Bang didn't even flinch. He laughed. He yelled back, "You and I are sworn brothers, so my dad is your dad. If you're really going to boil our dad, then please send me a bowl of the soup." Xiang Yu was so disgusted by his shamelessness that he didn't go through with it. Lu Ji in that prison camp must have heard these stories. Her husband, to save himself, had kicked her children out of a carriage. Her husband, to win a war, had joked about eating his own father. She must have finally understood a cold, hard fact. In this game, she was nothing. Her kids were nothing. All her sacrifices meant nothing. The only person she could count on was herself. The war went on and Liu Bang got stronger. In 203 BC, during a short truce, Xiang Yu finally let Lu Ji and Liu Bang's father go. She had survived years of being a prisoner, of being abandoned and used as a pawn. Now she was finally going back to her husband, the man who was about to rule all of China. Maybe she hoped for a warm reunion, for some kind of apology. What she got was the ultimate betrayal. She got back to camp and found she'd been replaced. Her husband had a new woman, a young, beautiful consort who was a great singer and dancer, Lady Qi. The history books say Liu Bang was obsessed with Lady Qi. They were always together. Wherever he went, he would take his consort with him. And Lu Ji? She never went anywhere with him again. To make it worse, Lady Qi also had a son, Liu Ruyi. In Chinese, Ruyi means as one wishes, or everything going perfectly smoothly. It was a name full of love and high hopes. Contrast that with the name he gave his firstborn, illegitimate son, Liu Fei. Fei, in Chinese, literally means fat. A historian wrote that Lu Ji's years in captivity left her with deep trauma, which forged her hard and even bitter character. And now she came back with all those scars, only to find her husband had found an unscarred, younger, softer replacement. It was a slap in the face to everything she had endured. If the stories of the carriage and the soup had killed her belief in love, then Lady Qi killed her belief in her own place in the world. She finally got it. Love was useless. Too cheap, too easy to lose. The only thing that could protect her and her children was power. She had two claims to it. She was the main wife, and she was the mother of the heir. And soon, both were about to be taken from her. In 202 BC, the war was over. Xiang Yu was dead. Liu Bang had won. He declared himself the Emperor of China. A new great dynasty, the Han, had begun. As his wife, who had been with him through thick and thin, Lu Ji got what she deserved, a title no woman had ever held before. Empress. She was the first officially crowned empress in Chinese history. Her son, Liu Ying, was named the Crown Prince. Her family, the Lu clan, were all made nobles. Their investment had paid off. It was a cold victory. After her husband took the throne, Lu Ji showed her incredible talent for politics. She was no longer just a wife, she was a partner. She helped the emperor run the country. While he was away fighting rebels, she was in charge of the government in the capital. She was a capable ruler, tough and decisive. She had the title of an empress and the power of one. She had everything she wanted, except her husband's heart. The history books state bluntly, in his later years, he favored Lady Qi and grew distant from Empress Lu. She had won an empire but lost the man she had bet on from the very beginning. For a normal woman, maybe that's just how life goes. But for Lu Ji, this was the most dangerous situation she could be in. She was the first empress, but she knew in her gut the bloody war that was about to start. The war between the old unloved empress and the young favored consort. This was the breaking point. It's the only key to understanding why she became a monster. Lady Qi, the favorite, wasn't satisfied. She didn't want her son to be just another prince. She wanted more. She urged the emperor to make her son the crown prince. She cried, pleaded, and begged Liu Bang every single day. And Liu Bang, the old emperor, agreed. He looked at Lu Ji's son, Liu Ying, and saw a weak and useless boy, a coward who wasn't like him at all. Then he looked at Lady Qi's son and saw a boy who was strong and just like him. So Liu Bang tried several times to replace the heir. We have to be clear about what this really meant. This wasn't a modern custody battle. In the Han court, there was no peaceful retirement. There was no second place. If Lu Ji's son was removed as crown prince, he would be killed. It was practically guaranteed. And to stop his supporters from getting revenge, his mother, Empress Lu, would almost certainly have to be killed too. Lady Qi's tears, whether she knew it or not, were an attempt to sign Lu Ji's death warrant. And Liu Bang, the man she had spent her life helping, the husband she had gone to jail for, was letting it happen. He was willing to sacrifice his first wife for the tears of his new love. This time it was different from the escape carriage. That time he had kicked her children. This time he was kicking her. Lu Ji was backed into a corner. She was terrified. She begged the old court ministers for help. They stood up for her, mostly out of respect for tradition. One of them, Zhou Chang, even stammered at the emperor, I may not be a good speaker, but I know this is wrong. If you replace the crown prince, I will stop taking your orders." Liu Bang thought his stuttering was hilarious. He just laughed. He ignored them all. At that moment, Lu Ji had no one left. Her husband was her enemy. The ministers were powerless. The lesson she should have learned years ago was back, and it was more brutal than ever. No one was coming to save her. She had to save herself. If Liu Bang's excuse was that the crown prince was too weak, then Lu Ji's next moves were a message to him and the world. My son might be weak, but I am not. She would show them who was really strong. She would use blood and steel to save her son's future. Her first target was Han Xin, one of the 3 great heroes who founded the dynasty. He was the military genius who had won the war for Liu Bang, which was exactly why Liu Bang was terrified of him. At the time, Liu Bang was away fighting a rebellion. Han Xin had stayed behind, claiming he was sick. But the leader of that rebellion had visited Han Xin right before he started it. That was all the excuse Lu Ji needed. The history books say Liu Bang himself was hesitant to kill Han Xin, who had already been demoted, but Lu Ji wasn't. While her husband was away, she plotted with the chancellor, called Han Xin to the palace, had him tortured and executed. When Liu Bang got back, the deed was done. He said nothing. Maybe he thought, the man I was too soft to kill, my wife killed for me. Liu Ji had shown him her political value and her cold-bloodedness. But it wasn't enough. Her second target was another hero, Peng Yue. He was also accused of treason. This time, Liu Bang went easy on him, just stripping him of his title and sending him into exile. But then, something dramatic happened. On his way out of town, Peng Yue ran into Empress Lü. Peng Yue thought she was his savior. He fell to his knees, crying, begging her to speak to the emperor for him. Liu Ji smiled kindly. She pretended to agree. She brought him back to the capital. Then she secretly ordered one of his own servants to frame him, to claim he was still plotting a rebellion. With the empress's push, Liu Bang signed the death sentence. But Liu Ji again turned the execution into a horror show. She ordered Peng Yue's body to be chopped into a paste, salted, and then sent in jars to all the other nobles in the empire. This human jam was a warning. It was Liu Ji telling every ambitious man in the land, "This is what happens when you cross me and my son." It was also her telling Liu Bang, "The dirty work you can't do, I will. The men you can't kill, I will. You thought I was weak. Now you see who's really tough." This was the dress rehearsal for the human pig. She was already an expert at using terror as a political tool. Liu Ji had proven she was tough, but it still wasn't enough. Her husband, Liu Bang, still wanted to replace the crown prince. He was dying. He felt he was running out of time, and he was more desperate than ever to put his favorite woman and her son in power. Liu Ji was terrified. Violence and threats didn't work on her husband. She needed a smarter plan. In desperation, she went to Liu Bang's most trusted advisor, the sage of strategy, Zhang Liang. She begged him for help. But Zhang Liang told her, "The emperor's mind is made up. Even I can't change it." But then, he added, "There are, however, 4 men the emperor deeply respects, the 4 whiteheads of Mount Shang." They were 4 legendary wise men who, disgusted with the wars and politics, had hidden themselves away in the mountains, vowing never to serve any ruler. Liu Bang had personally tried to hire them, but they had turned him down. Zhang Liang's plan was simple. If the crown prince could get the men, the emperor could not. It would prove to the world that he had more virtue, more right to rule. Liu Ji used all her persuasion and family money. She did what Emperor Liu Bang could not. The 4 hermits, moved by her sincerity, agreed to come out of hiding. The final showdown came. Liu Bang was holding a banquet at the palace. He was going to announce the change of heir that very day. The crown prince, Liu Ying, walked in. Liu Bang looked at his weak son, and then he froze. He saw the 4 men following him. They had white hair and white beards. Liu Bang was shocked. "Who are they?" he asked. The 4 old men came forward and introduced themselves. When Liu Bang heard those 4 famous names, the names of the men he wanted but couldn't have, he knew everything. He knew he had lost. After the banquet, he called Lady Qi to his side and told her the words that sealed her fate. "I can't make your son the crown prince anymore. The heir now has the support of those great men. His wings are fully grown, he can't be touched. From now on, Empress Lü is truly your master." This was Liu Ji's victory. She hadn't won with her husband's pity or the loyalty of ministers. She won with her own strength, her own terror, and her own brilliant strategy. She wasn't just the empress, she was the master of the game. The history books say that after the 4 old men left, Lady Qi began to cry. Liu Bang tried to comfort her. "Dance for me," he said, "and I will sing for you." In one of the last moments of his life, the great founding emperor looked at the woman he loved, the woman he could not protect, and sang a song of bitter defeat. It's known as the Song of the Great Swan, his swan song. Our artistic team has interpreted it as a bilingual musical recitation so that we may feel what the emperor felt in that moment.
鸿鹄高飞，一举千里，鱼和依旧，横绝四海。横绝四海，本可奈何？水有腾浊。上岸说是水有腾浊， 上岸说是
A great swan soars on high. Its wings beat strong. 1,000 miles it flies, where it belongs. Its feathers grown, its pinions brave and bold. Across 4 seas, a story to be told. Across 4 seas, what power can now contend? What hunter's arrow can the heavens send? Your silken string is drawn. Your aim is true. But tell me, hunter, what is there to do?
The great swan was the crown prince. The wings were the political shield Liu Ji had built for him. And the hunter, with his bow and arrow but no target, was Liu Bang himself. The founding emperor was using his last breath to admit defeat to his wife, his enemy, Liu Ji. But his final moments of love, his final tears, his final comfort, were all for another woman. In 195 BC, Liu Bang died, and the loyal wife he had married also died. The tough hostage died. The smart politician had won. And the woman who had been denied all love, all trust, all ways out, was finally free of her last chain. Now it was time for Lady Qi and her son, Liu Ruyi. The stage was finally perfectly cleared for the monster to emerge. This is a story of how a woman seized and wielded ultimate power. She was the first empress of China, and upon her husband's death, she became the empire's first Empress Dowager. The profound insecurities born from her turbulent life drove her to relentlessly consolidate control over the empire. Eventually, she became China's first de facto female ruler, earning a place in the official imperial annals alongside the emperors themselves. Yet she faced the ultimate dilemma shared by all female rulers in Chinese history. In a patriarchal society, how does one balance the interests of the house of her birth against the house of her marriage? Most pressingly, how could she ensure that her own kin would not face a violent backlash once she was gone? To this end, she took measures that others found unimaginable, and in doing so, she ultimately shouldered a legacy of chilling infamy. On June 1st, 195 BC, Liu Bang, the founder of the Han Empire, took his last breath in Changle Palace at the age of 62. But his wife, the 46-year-old Empress Liu Ji, ordered a total gag on the news of his death. She summoned her most trusted confidant, Shen Yiji. Liu Ji told him, "The emperor is dead. Those founding heroes who followed him to conquer the world will never be submissive. It is better to keep the death a secret and execute them all now to stabilize the realm." By this time, Liu Ji was no longer content with being a mere wife. She had already penetrated the inner sanctum of imperial politics. Under her direction, 2 of the empire's greatest generals, Han Xin, Marquis of Huaiyin, and Peng Yue, King of Liang, had already been executed in a brutal and bloody fashion. These purges had even triggered a rebellion by another founding hero, Ying Bu. In fact, Liu Bang's death was partly due to an arrow wound he sustained while personally leading the campaign to suppress that very revolt. Now, Liu Ji's plan exceeded even Shen Yiji's comprehension. As a fellow townsman of Liu Bang and Liu Ji, Shen had risen through the ranks by caring for the Liu family, especially Liu Ji during the wars. But to slaughter the entire old guard, many of whom were also his own townsmen, was beyond the capacity of this civil official. Yet he had neither the power nor the courage to challenge her. Shen Yiji knew Liu Ji too well. He had been by her side during the 28 months she was held captive as a hostage by Xiang Yu. He was there when she finally returned to the Han camp, only to find her position usurped by Lady Qi, a woman 15 years her junior. He understood the ruthless drive within Liu Ji to survive and reclaim what was hers. But to kill all the meritorious officials? Was this too far? As Shen Yiji wavered, General Li Shang caught wind of the plot and rushed to the palace. With the piercing insight of a veteran, he gave Shen a dose of harsh reality. The great generals are all stationed abroad. There are 200,000 troops to the north and 100,000 to the east. The moment they hear you are purging the old guard, they will unite and strike. Are you not simply waiting for your own death? This was the lethal logic of a general who had survived the killing fields. It wasn't a question of whether it should be done, but whether it could be done. Shen Yiji immediately returned to the inner palace and used this argument to dispel Liu Ji's frenzied plan. Thus, after 4 days, the death of Liu Bang was finally announced, and his funeral rites began. Liu Ji became China's first Empress Dowager. Her son, Liu Ying, the heir whose position she had fought so desperately to protect, became the second emperor of the Han Empire at the age of 16. By this time, following the political purges led by Liu Bang and 6 years of civil war, the Han Empire was firmly under the control of the Liu clan, save for the minor kingdom of Changsha. Liu Bang's eldest son, Liu Fei, now nearly 30, was a son born out of wedlock and had never been a candidate for the throne. He was the most powerful vassal, the king of Qi. The second son, Liu Ying, Liu Ji's only son, ascended as the legitimate heir. The third son, Liu Ruyi, about 13, was the king of Zhao. His mother was Lady Qi, the woman who had stolen Liu Bang's heart. The fourth son, Liu Heng, 8, was the king of Dai, born to a low-profile former captive. Then came Liu Hui, 7, king of Liang, Liu Yu, 6, king of Huayang, and Liu Chang, 5, king of Huainan, who was raised by Liu Ji herself after his birth mother died. The youngest was Liu Jian, 4, king of Yan. Additionally, Liu Bang's brother, Liu Jiao, ruled as the king of Chu and his nephew Liu Bi as the king of Wu. And what of the Liu family? Liu Ji's eldest brother, Liu Zei, had died years earlier suppressing revolts, and his sons, Liu Tai and Liu Chan, were merely titled marquises. Her second brother, Liu Shiji, was also a veteran general and a marquise. And that was all. At Liu Bang's funeral, looking at the sea of Liu clan members draped in the titles of kings and kings, one wonders if the marquises of the Liu family felt a sting of resentment. But Liu Ji did not feel resentment. She felt a cold triumph. She had finally waited for this day. Shortly after the funeral, Lady Qi was evicted from Changle Palace and relegated to the everlasting alley, Yongxiang, to wash clothes. At that time, China had only seen 3 emperors, and there was no formal tradition for how to treat the concubines of a deceased ruler. When Liu Ji sent her former rival to perform menial labor, many felt it was improper, but no one dared object. However, Lady Qi refused to accept her fate. It is said that while washing clothes in the alley, she began to sing. A king the sun, a slave the mother, pounding grain from dawn to dusk, like no other. 3,000 miles of mountain and sea, who will tell my son of me? Lady Dai was renowned for her singing and dancing, which was how she had captured Liu Bang's affection. Her song was deeply moving, touching those around her, and eventually reaching the ears of Liu Ji. Liu Ji was enraged. So, you still plan to use your son to make a comeback? Just you wait. Liu Ji summoned the king of Zhao to the capital in the emperor's name. Everyone knew her intent. Zhou Chang, the chancellor of Zhao, defied the order, citing the king's illness as a reason for his absence. In a fury, Liu Ji first summoned Zhou Chang. When he arrived, she pointed at him and hissed, "You know how much I hate the Qi woman. Why do you stand in my way?" Liu Ji then summoned the king of Zhao again. This time, no one dared defy a decree issued in the emperor's name, except the emperor himself. Liu Ying, fully aware of his mother's intentions, personally went to meet his younger brother. He brought him directly into his own palace, eating and sleeping with him, hoping to act as a human shield and let time soften his mother's hatred. But Liu Ying underestimated the depth of that hatred. Not long after, Liu Ying rose early one morning to go out for archery. Liu Ruyi, being young and fond of sleep, did not join him. By the time the emperor returned, his brother had already been forced to drink poisoned wine by Liu Ji's agents. The king of Zhao was dead. History does not record Emperor Liu Ying's state of mind at this moment. It only notes that he later tracked down the strongman who had executed his mother's order and had him sawn in half at the waist in the public market. After the death of the king of Zhao, Empress Lu ordered the gouging out of Lady Qi's eyes, the burning of her ears, and the forcing of toxins into her throat to render her mute. Finally, after severing her limbs, she cast the broken woman into a latrine, naming the creation the human swine, a human reduced to the state of a pig. Lu Ji deliberately ordered a eunuch to lead the young emperor to witness this horror. When Liu Ying realized the mangled creature was Lady Qi, he collapsed in a fit of agonizing sobs and fell gravely ill. He sent a message to his mother. "This is not the work of a human. As your son, I can no longer hope to rule the world." But Liu Ying was mistaken. Lu Ji's twisted and frenzied heart for vengeance did not cease with the deaths of Lady Qi and Liu Ruyi. She soon fixed her sights on her next target, Liu Bang's eldest son, Liu Fei, the king of Qi. In 193 BC, Liu Jiao, king of Chu, and Liu Fei, king of Qi, the two elder vassal kings, arrived in Chang'an to pay homage to the emperor. Emperor Liu Ying was genuinely pleased to see them. At a banquet following the protocol of a family gathering rather than imperial court, Liu Ying offered the seat of honor to his elder brother, Liu Fei. After a brief show of humility, Liu Fei accepted. This seemingly innocent gesture ignited Lu Ji's fury. She ordered attendants to place 2 cups of poisoned wine before the king of Qi and, in her capacity as Empress Dowager, commanded him to offer her a toast. The emperor knew these tactics all too well. Just as the oblivious Liu Fei was about to raise the cup, Liu Ying lunged forward, grabbed the other cup, and prepared to drink it alongside his brother. Startled and enraged, Lu Ji rose and physically struck the cup from Liu Ying's hand. At that moment, even the most dull-witted observer understood the situation. Liu Fei immediately feigned intoxication and fled the palace. Later, his agents confirmed that Lu Ji intended to take his life. Terrified and realizing he could not easily escape Chang'an, he sought counsel from his ministers. On their advice, he offered more than 10 cities from the kingdom of Qi to Lu Ji's daughter, Princess Lu Yuan, Liu Bang's only legitimate daughter. To secure his survival, Liu Fei went even further, defying all Confucian ethics by formally addressing his younger half-sister as Queen Mother. This finally appeased Lu Ji. She hosted a lavish banquet at Liu Fei's residence in the capital and allowed the narrow-escaped king of Qi to return to his fief. Following the acquisition of these cities for her daughter, Lu Ji sought an even greater, yet far more incestuous interest for Princess Lu Yuan the following year. She arranged for Lu Yuan's daughter, Zhang Yan, to become the empress. Yes, the emperor was forced to marry his own niece. That year, Empress Zhang Yan was only 10 years old. Even by ancient standards, she was far too young. Consequently, several years passed without a pregnancy. Seeing that Liu Ying was terminally ill, Lu Ji decided that the matter of succession could no longer wait. She had already micromanaged her son's entire life. Now she would orchestrate the destiny of the next generation. Upon learning that Liu Ying was expecting a child with a palace consort, she ordered Empress Zhang Yan to feign pregnancy and eventually declared the child as the empress's own. By a stroke of political fortune, the child was a boy. A son born to the empress was, by definition, the legitimate heir. Thus, this infant, whose actual name was never even recorded in the official annals, was established as the crown prince. As for the child's biological mother, she was, without exception, executed on Lu Ji's orders. A few years after this political tragedy, the gentle and sickly Emperor Liu Ying passed away at the age of 23. The child born to the consort was enthroned as the emperor. Zhang Yan became the Empress Dowager, and Lu Ji, now 53, became the Grand Empress Dowager. It is said that when Liu Ying died, Lu Ji wailed with great sorrow, yet not a single tear fell from her eyes, and she refused to proceed with the burial. The founding veterans, led by Zhang Liang and Chen Ping, were horrified by this political theater. They were uncertain of her intentions, perhaps still haunted by the great purge she had planned after Liu Bang's death. Whether out of genuine fear for stability or a desperate desire to flatter her, they proposed, "The crown prince is too young. You, great mother, must personally carry the burden of the empire." Lu Ji stopped her crying. Carry the burden? How? Chen Ping, then serving as chancellor, further suggested that Lu Ji's nephews, Lu Chan and Lu Lu, be appointed as generals to command the northern and southern armies, ensuring that the defense of the palace was firmly in the hands of the Lu clan. Only then could Lu Ji command the world in the name of the Grand Empress Dowager. Liu Ji was satisfied with this arrangement. 23 days later, once all political pieces were in place, the second emperor of the Han, Liu Ying, was finally buried in Anling. The young child ascended the throne, and Liu Ji began her regnancy. A month later, she changed the era name to the first year of Empress Gao. She became the first de facto female ruler in Chinese history. Liu Ji ruled with absolute authority. She did not merely hold power, she issued decrees in her own name, without the need for a puppet emperor's seal. Unlike later empresses who ruled from behind the veil, she sat openly in the imperial hall, receiving the homage of the 100 officials and exercising the supreme power of the empire. This set her fundamentally apart from all female regents who followed. And what of the emperor? To Liu Ji, he was merely a child, a grandson, and a disposable political symbol. The Han Empire was now entirely within her grasp. She began to grant grand titles to the Liu clan. Before officially ennobling her own kin, she performed a superficial gesture of goodwill by granting titles to Liu Ying's other sons. Then, she dropped a hint to her ministers. The Liu family has received more titles. Is it not time for the Liu family? The ministers, keen to the political winds, immediately petitioned for it. Liu Ji graciously accepted, beginning the wholesale enrichment of her clan. In the following years, she posthumously honored 3 deceased Liu ancestors as kings and ennobled 5 living Liu kinsmen as kings, along with at least 7 as marquises. Among these, the most controversial was the Marquise of Lingguang, for this title belonged to Liu Shu, Liu Ji's younger sister. Yes, Liu Ji's own sister was made a marquise. This was a slap in the face to every meritorious official in the empire. At that time, a marquise was either a founding hero or a member of the imperial clan. Even the other Liu men were at least descendants of those with military merit. But Liu Shu was a woman. Had it not been for her sister, how could she hold such a title? Was her merit equal to that of her husband? Ironically, her husband was the famous Fan Kuai, the Marquis of Wuyang and Liu Bang's brother-in-law. Yet no one dared to breathe a word of criticism against this outrageous appointment, because only 2 years prior, Liu Ji had murdered the emperor. Indeed, Liu Ji executed her own grandson, the little emperor who had sat on the throne for only a few years. The boy had begun to grow up and discovered the truth of his birth. In the innocence of childhood, he had whispered, "How could the empress kill my mother and claim me as her own? I am small now, but when I grow up, I will revolt." Unluckily, these words reached Liu Ji's ears. She immediately had the emperor imprisoned in the everlasting alley, claiming he was ill. She began to spread word that the emperor was too sick to lead and that a replacement was necessary. The ministers, sensing the danger, complied. Liu Ji then had the young emperor killed and selected an even younger grandson to sit upon the dragon throne. What was the era name of this new little emperor? An era name? Why would there be one? Was the Great Han not already under the brilliant rule of the wise Empress Liu? Was it not the 4th year of Empress Gao? Why should a change in emperor necessitate a change in the calendar? Was he truly that important? In 181 BC, Liu Ji summoned Liu Yu, the king of Zhao, to the capital. As the 6th son of Liu Bang, Liu Yu had originally been the king of Huaiyang. After Liu Ji murdered the previous king of Zhao, Liu Ruyi, she transferred Liu Yu to the ill-fated Zhao throne. Then she executed a masterful but sinister maneuver. She forced Liu Yu to marry a woman from the Liu clan, effectively turning her nominal son into a nominal son-in-law. Forced unions bear bitter fruit. The king of Zhao did not love his Liu queen, preferring the company of his concubines. But he forgot that a woman of the Liu clan was not to be trifled with. In a fit of jealous rage, the queen fled to Chang'an and accused the king of rebellion, claiming he had said in his cups, "How can the Liu clan be kings? Once the Empress Dowager is gone, I will settle the score with them." Liu Ji would not let this pass. She summoned Liu Yu to the capital immediately. She gave him no chance to explain, placing him under house arrest in his Chang'an residence and, chillingly, denying him food. Any attendants who tried to smuggle food to him were promptly arrested and prosecuted. A son of Liu Bang, a king of the empire, was thus starved to death. It is said that before he perished, Liu Yu composed a song denouncing the Lü clan, concluding with the line, "The Lü clan flouts the laws of heaven. I entrust my vengeance to the gods." Shortly thereafter, a solar eclipse occurred over Chang'an, a dire omen in ancient China. Lu Ji was deeply unsettled, remarking to her attendants, "Is this because of me?" She may have been unsettled, but she was never cautious. To a woman who had spent a lifetime chasing power, a celestial warning was a mere inconvenience. If the heavens were displeased, she would simply ennoble another Lu clansman to ward off the ill luck. Lu Ji ordered her nephew, Liu Chan, to be made king of Liang. The former king of Liang, Liu Bang's fifth son, Liu Hui, was transferred to become the new king of Zhao. Displaced from his own kingdom to the northern realm of Zhao, Liu Hui was despondent. Lu Ji, ever attentive, decided his sadness was due to a lack of family. She forced Liu Hui to marry the daughter of the new king of Liang, Liu Chan. How could Liu Hui be satisfied? The new Liu queen arrived with a massive retinue and quickly seized control of the kingdom's administration. Then, as if inheriting the Liu family's signature jealousy, she grew resentful of Liu Hui's favorite concubine. Unlike the previous queen of Zhao, she took matters into her own hands and poisoned the woman. When Liu Hui discovered the truth, he was paralyzed. Retaliate? Seek justice? The fate of the previous king of Zhao served as a grim reminder of his options. Instead, he composed 4 songs to mourn his beloved concubine and then committed suicide to join her in death. When the news reached Chang'an, Lu Ji was furious. She viewed Liu Hui as a man who had abandoned his house and state for a mere woman. "Such a man is of no use to the empire," she declared. She decreed that his descendants would never inherit a title. She then sent an envoy to Liu Heng, the king of Dai. "Would you like to be the new king of Zhao?" The king of Dai, Liu Heng, immediately declined. "Great mother, my kingdom of Dai is on the northern frontier, facing the Xiongnu. I shall remain in this desolate land to guard the borders for the empire." Just as Lu Ji's anger began to rise again, the Chancellor Chen Ping stepped in with a suggestion. The fact that 3 kings of Zhao have met with misfortune proves they were not mature enough for the task. Your nephew, the Grand Commandant Lu Lu, is the only one fit for the Zhao throne. Lu Ji was pleased with Chen Ping's wisdom. Thus, the king of Zhao became a member of the Lu clan. Around the same time, Zhang Ao, the husband of Princess Lu Yuan and Lu Ji's son-in-law, passed away. Years earlier, Zhang Ao had been implicated in a plot against Liu Bang and only kept his life, though stripped of his kingdom, because of Lu Ji's desperate pleas. Compared to the Liu clan, Lu Ji always viewed Zhang Ao's family as her true kin. As Princess Lu Yuan had already passed away, Lu Ji ennobled their son, Zhang Yan, as the king of Lu, and granted marquessats to Zhang Ao's other sons. Soon after, Liu Bang's youngest son, Liu Jian, the king of Yan, died. He left a son born to a concubine, but Lu Ji, who had already set her sights on the kingdom of Yan, dispatched assassins to kill the prince. She then smoothly declared that the king of Yan had died without an heir, and the kingdom was dissolved. A month later, she appointed her grandnephew, Lu Tong, as the new king of Zhao. The process was seamless, executed with the cold precision of a veteran architect of power. The year was 180 BC, the 8th year of the reign of Empress Gao. Let us survey the Han Empire at this moment. Where did the Lu clan stand? In the vassal kingdoms, the houses of Liang, Zhao, Yan, Lu, and Lu were all ruled by the Lu clan. In the central capital of Chang'an, Lu Chan and Lu Lu, Lu Ji's nephews, served as chancellor and grand commandant, commanding the southern and northern armies respectively. Beneath them, numerous Lu clansmen held key administrative and imperial guard positions as marquises. The military and administrative veins of Chang'an were entirely within their grasp. Beyond this, a web of Lu women, led by Lu Shu, the Marquise of Lingguang, occupied roles as queens and wives of high officials, casting an invisible net over the empire. In stark contrast, the influence of the Liu clan had been crushed to its minimum. Although the emperor bore the name Liu, the 16-year-old youth possessed no political agency under Lu Ji's shadow. Even his empress was a Lü. Among the remaining Liu kings, the king of Chu was aging, the king of Wu was preoccupied with salt production and wealth, the king of Dai was too terrified to even accept a promotion, and the king of Huainan was an adopted son raised by Lu Ji herself. The only potential threat was the kingdom of Qi. Though Liu Fei had passed, Qi remained one of the most powerful eastern states. To neutralize it, Lu Ji had not only taken cities for her daughter, but had partitioned the kingdom into 4 pieces, inserting the Lu-controlled states of Lu and Lu, and half-controlling Langya, whose king, Liu Zhe, was married to the daughter of Lu Shu and Fan Kuai. By 180 BC, it was no exaggeration to say that if this trajectory had continued for a few more years, the Han Empire might have ceased to be the House of Lu forever. But history has no ifs. In March of that year, while returning from a ritual outing, Lu Ji stopped to rest at a pavilion. Suddenly, a creature resembling a black dog lunged out of the shadows, struck her squarely in the flank, and vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Terrified, Lu Ji consulted a diviner. The verdict: it was the vengeful spirit of Liu Ruyi, the late king of Zhao. A more grounded interpretation, however, is that the empress had been bitten by a rabid dog. Months later, the symptoms of rabies took hold. At the very zenith of her power, China's first female ruler succumbed to her illness and died. With the passing of this iron-willed matriarch, the stage was set for a political drama even more spectacular and even more blood-soaked than the one she had authored.
The early summer of 195 BC, Chang'an. Deep within the corridors of the Changal Palace, the air felt heavy, and the relentless chirping of cicadas was suddenly broken by a flurry of urgent footsteps. Chen Ping, the military superintendent, was being led by attendants, rushing towards the Hall of Warmth. He had already prepared himself for the worst. However, as he reached the gates, he noticed the Imperial guards standing tall with their halberds, and the attendants moving in and out as usual. He breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed the emperor had not yet passed away. But in an instant, his heart tightened again. Why had the gravely ill Liu Bang summoned him in the middle of the night? Liu Bang, the founding emperor of the Han Dynasty, lay on his sickbed in the Hall of Warmth, his vision blurred. After finally recognizing Chen Ping, Liu Bang erupted in a fit of rage. "They have rebelled. All of them. Kill them. Kill them all." As the military superintendent, Chen Ping's primary duty was to oversee the generals. Who had rebelled? Who was to be executed? He stepped forward to inquire. Despite having handled countless treason cases, Liu Bang's latest order took Chen Ping completely by surprise. Liu Bang had received a secret report. His brother-in-law, Fan Kuai, the man currently leading 200,000 troops to suppress a rebellion in the north, was allegedly plotting a bloodbath to occur after the emperor's death. His targets? Liu Bang's favorite concubine, Lady Qi, and the young king of Zhao. A flash of cold ruthlessness flickered in Liu Bang's eyes. He stared fixedly at Chen Ping and issued a short, sharp command. "Kill him." Why Chen Ping? Among the founding heroes of the Han Dynasty, Chen Ping occupied a unique and peculiar space. It wasn't just because he was the emperor's sharpest and most secretive political bloodhound, responsible for internal purges and monitoring the military. More importantly, while he possessed an intellect rivaling the sage of strategy, Zhang Liang, his way of thinking was entirely different. Zhang Liang was high-born, pursuing overt strategies and Taoist transcendence. Chen Ping, however, was a schemer who walked in the shadows. If Zhang Liang was building the soul of the nation, Chen Ping was responsible for the empire's dirtiest and bloodiest cleanup work. Thus, when his own brother-in-law was suspected of treason, Liu Bang did not call for Zhang Liang. He called for Chen Ping. This ultimate reckoning of power and kin had to be entrusted to a strategist unburdened by conventional morality. True to form, Chen Ping did not offer a single word of protest or question whether the act was right. Instead, he immediately asked how it should be done. he quickly devised a precise operational plan. To prevent a mutiny among the 200,000 troops following their commander's execution, the death sentence could not be announced openly. He suggested that Grand Commandant Zhou Bo be sent to take over military command, while Chen Ping himself would personally carry out the execution. Liu Bang approved. He immediately summoned Zhou Bo, issued the Imperial decree, and ordered the two men to depart at once, traveling through the night to the northern front to seize command and execute Fan Kuai. Zhou Bo gave Chen Ping a meaningful look and accepted the order. Not long ago, in this very hall of warmth, by Liu Bang's bedside, Empress Lü had asked the emperor about the future political arrangements of the empire. The most critical decision was who would succeed Xiao He as the head of the administration. Liu Bang gave an intriguing sequence: Cao Shen, Wang Ling, and then Zhou Bo. But when mentioning Wang Ling, Liu Bang noted that while loyal, he was somewhat pedantic and would need someone to assist him as a deputy. That person was Chen Ping. This was a secret political blueprint. Neither Chen Ping nor Zhou Bo knew of it yet. As the two men walked side by side out of the Changle Palace, they remained silent. The palace was no place for secrets. Zhou Bo, a man of rigid integrity, had always felt a sense of revulsion toward Chen Ping's dark methods. Yet he had to wait patiently for the right moment to draw the truth from Chen Ping's mouth. Even a soldier like him could see that they were walking into a death trap. Fan Kuai was not only a founding hero, but also the brother-in-law of Empress Lü. A dying Liu Bang might, in his fury, tear up the bonds of old friendship. But what about the Empress? To kill her closest family member at the very moment the emperor was about to draw his last breath. Was this an act of loyalty or an act of suicide? Chen Ping also remained silent, waiting for his moment. He saw a predicament that far exceeded Zhou Bo's concerns. He was searching for a path to survival so narrow it barely existed, not just for himself, but for the empire. And the Grand Commandant beside him, Zhou Bo, was the crucial pivot on that path. A thriller of survival, betrayal, and power had just begun. Before joining Liu Bang's uprising, Grand Commandant Zhou Bo was merely a musician in Pei County, making a living by playing the flute at funerals and weaving mats. Despite his lowly origins, he looked down on Chen Ping. To him, he was merely poor, whereas Chen Ping was morally bankrupt. When Chen Ping first joined Liu Bang, Zhou Bo and Guan Ying immediately protested, pointing out that in his youth, Chen Ping allegedly had an affair with his sister-in-law and had accepted bribes while serving as officer. How could such a man be trusted? Finally, Zhou Bo had said with righteous indignation, "Though he is a handsome man, he is nothing more than the jade on a crown, a beautiful ornament with no real substance." Indeed, Chen Ping was too handsome. In the records of the grand historian, Sima Qian described him with these words: towering stature and striking features. In that era of constant warfare, such decency was almost a sin. When he was still a starving student, his neighbors would ask with mockery and jealousy, "You are so poor. What on earth are you eating to grow so tall and robust?" What was he eating? The sweat of his brother and the cold glares of his sister-in-law. Chen Ping's family was destitute, yet he spent his days immersed in books and travel. His brother, a kind-hearted man, took on all the farm work, indulging his brother's pursuit of ethereal knowledge. But Chen Ping's sister-in-law loathed this idle, pretty boy. She would sneer in front of others. "What does he eat? Chaff! Having a brother who doesn't care for the family is worse than having no brother at all." This was the environment of Chen Ping's early years, a study in extreme contradictions. He possessed the bearing and knowledge of an aristocrat, but lived in a slum where there wasn't even a door, only a tattered straw mat to block the wind and rain. This poverty ensured that Chen Ping and Zhang Liang would never be the same. Zhang Liang came from a noble lineage in the state of Han, with 5 generations of chancellors in his family. He never had to worry about survival. His strategies were overt, ethereal, and almost divine. but Chen Ping had to survive. This hunger from the bottom of society forged in him an ultimate pragmatism. When Chen Ping reached the age for marriage, he looked down on the poor and the wealthy looked down on his poverty. At that time, there was a wealthy local family with a granddaughter who had been married 5 times. All 5 of her husbands had met untimely deaths. This was seen as the widow's curse, and no one dared to marry her. Chen Ping, however, actively pursued her. Having no money for gifts, he ran errands at local funerals to save money and catch the eye of the wealthy grandfather. The tactic worked. The old man, desperate to offload the cursed asset, noticed the dignified young man. After a series of tests, the marriage was approved. He not only gave his granddaughter to Chen Ping, but also paid for the dowry, wine, and meat himself. Only after marrying into wealth did Chen Ping's life trajectory begin to change. His social circle expanded rapidly, and his political ambitions began to sprout amidst the seemingly trivial details of daily life. You see, this is Chen Ping. He was not an elegant national advisor like Zhang Liang. He was a master of survival who emerged from behind a tattered straw mat, raised amidst the curses of a sister-in-law, and willing to marry a cursed widow just to get ahead. Every bit of his elegance was a mask. Every bit of his scheming was a desperate effort never to return to that dark, impoverished alley. However, this was not the primary reason Zhou Bo despised him. In the eyes of Zhou Bo and the old guard from Pei County, Chen Ping was more than just a handsome man with questionable morals. He was an untrustworthy turncoat. To be fair, Chen Ping's resume read like a report on opportunistic betrayals. His first political stage was the Kingdom of Wei. He was appointed as the Grand Equerry. However, this allegiance was short-lived. Chen Ping repeatedly offered strategies to the king, but his advice fell on deaf ears. Soon, those around the king began to marginalize and slander him. For Chen Ping, loyalty was conditional. His talent had to be seen and utilized. Once he realized the King of Wei was not destined for greatness, he did not wait to be consumed by the failing regime. He made a clean break and fled. Shortly after, when Xiang Yu led the Chu army to the banks of the Yellow River, Chen Ping chose to defect to the overlord. He followed Xiang Yu in crushing the Qin forces, marched into the Guanzhong region, and was granted a noble title. Later, during the early stages of the Chu-Han contention, Xiang Yu dispatched Chen Ping to attack the vassal states that had sided with Liu Bang. Chen Ping did not disappoint. He returned in triumph. Yet the honeymoon period between Chen Ping and Xiang Yu evaporated just as quickly. As Liu Bang's Han army made strategic gains, Xiang Yu vented his fury on the generals who had previously stabilized the vassal states. Sensing the cold breath of the executioner's blade, Chen Ping made a new choice. He fled alone with nothing but his sword. When he surrendered to the Han, the whispers of his fickleness followed him like a shadow. Even Liu Bang questioned him to his face. Can a man of integrity truly have so many shifting loyalties? Chen Ping's response was disarmingly simple. I served the King of Wei, but he could not utilize my plans, so I left. King Xiang cannot trust anyone. He only promotes his own kin or his wife's brothers. Even the greatest geniuses are wasted under him, so I left Chu. I heard that your majesty knows how to use men, so I have come to join you. Liu Bang was delighted. Even when his generals grumbled, the king has just taken in a deserter from Chu, and without knowing his true worth, he shares a carriage with him and orders him to oversee us veterans. Liu Bang only trusted Chen Ping more. Why? Because he understood Chen Ping's logic of survival perfectly. He understood Chen Ping's isolation. Chen Ping could never be loyal to a king who ignored his talent, nor could he be loyal to the mercurial Xiang Yu. But in the Han camp, he found recognition. Moreover, because he was an outsider with no factional ties, he was entirely dependent on Liu Bang. That dependence was, in itself, the ultimate form of loyalty. And soon, Liu Bang would realize that Chen Ping offered something far more valuable than mere loyalty, an endless stream of lethal stratagems. Though Chen Ping's formal title under Liu Bang was military superintendent, in the actual mechanics of power, he functioned as the emperor's eyes in the shadows. Sima Qian, in his Records of the Grand Historian, noted that Chen Ping devised 6 masterstrokes in his lifetime. For each one, Liu Bang increased his fiefdom. Yet some of these plots were so clandestine that even the history books are vague about their details. The first stratagem, the seed of discord. When Liu Bang was trapped in Xinjiang by Qiang Yu and faced total annihilation, Chen Ping offered a cold observation. Though Qiang Yu was outwardly respectful, he was pathologically stingy with titles and rewards, causing true talent to feel alienated. Liu Bang handed Chen Ping 40,000 catties of gold, allowing him to spend it without any oversight. Chen Ping used this fortune to spread rumors within the Chu camp, successfully driving a wedge between Qiang Yu and his most vital generals. The second stratagem, the lethal molting. During the darkest hour of the siege at Xinjiang, Chen Ping orchestrated a ruthless decoy plan. He selected 2,000 women, dressed them in the armor of Han soldiers, and sent them out of the eastern gate at night, led by General Ji Xin, who was disguised as Liu Bang. While the Chu army swarmed the eastern gate in the chaos, the real Liu Bang quietly escaped through the western gate. This was Chen Ping. His tactics never considered morality, only results. The third stratagem, the political trap. When a report surfaced accusing Han Xin, the king of Chu, of rebellion, Liu Bang's generals clamored for a military expedition. Chen Ping alone saw the truth. The Central Army was not strong enough to crush Han Xin in open battle. He advised Liu Bang to follow the ancient tradition of an imperial tour, feigning a pleasure trip to Yunmeng Lake. Believing the emperor was merely passing through, Han Xin arrived at the roadside to greet him, unarmed and unsuspecting. With only a few warriors, the Han authorities easily apprehended the greatest military genius of the age. The fourth stratagem, the siege of Baideng. When Liu Bang led a campaign against the Xiongnu, he was surrounded by 400,000 cavalrymen at Pingcheng for 7 days and nights. In this life-or-death moment, Chen Ping struck again. He sent a secret envoy to negotiate with the Chanyu's wife, using clandestine bribes and political trade-offs to sway the most influential woman in the Chanyu's court. Miraculously, the Xiongnu army opened a gap in their encirclement, allowing Liu Bang to escape certain death. The final 2 stratagems, the internal purge. Whether it was the rebellion of Zhang Tu, the king of Yan, or the later wars against Chen Shi and Ying Bu, Chen Ping was always there as the military superintendent. He never commanded tens of thousands on the front lines. Instead, he operated behind the scenes, managing military intelligence and political subversion, ensuring that the powerful vassal kings were defeated from within before the battle even began. These 6 masterstrokes transformed Chen Ping from a poor boy living behind a tattered straw mat into the Marquis of Cunyi. He earned Liu Bang's absolute trust, so much so that he was woven into the long-term political blueprint of the empire. But did Chen Ping truly remain loyal to Liu Bang? Now let us return to that sweltering summer night in 195 BC. Chen Ping and Zhou Bo were racing toward the northern front in a war chariot, carrying that lethal imperial decree. Amidst the jolting of the journey, Chen Ping finally spoke. He said to Zhou Bo, "Fan Kuai is not only an old friend of the emperor, but also the brother-in-law of Empress Lü. He is a man of immense status and nobility. Currently, the emperor wants him dead out of a momentary fit of rage. If we truly return with Fan Kuai's head, and the emperor later regrets it, or if the emperor passes away and Empress Lü takes power, will there be any path to survival left for the 2 of us?" This was Chen Ping's ultimate survival wisdom. During a power vacuum, he refused to be the one holding the bloody blade. He proposed that instead of executing him, they should lock Fan Kuai in a prison carriage and bring him back to Chang'an alive, letting the emperor himself decide the fate of his confidant. Though Zhou Bo was a soldier, he was no fool. If Chen Ping, in charge of oversight, said so, how could he disagree? Moreover, Zhou Bo and Fan Kuai were old comrades from the same hometown, who would truly wish to strike the final blow. Thus, upon reaching the front, the two summoned Fan Kuai using the Imperial tally, immediately stripped him of his command, and Zhou Bo took over the campaign. Chen Ping placed Fan Kuai in the prison carriage and began the journey back to Chang'an. While they were still on the road, a world-shaking announcement arrived. Liu Bang had passed away. Chen Ping knew instantly that the most dangerous person was no longer the deceased emperor, but the woman now controlling Chang'an, Empress Lü. Specifically, Fan Kuai's wife and the empress's sister, Lü Shu, a woman of fierce temperament, was likely to target him for the arrest of her husband. She could whisper slanders in the empress's ear at any moment to destroy him. Without a moment's hesitation, Chen Ping abandoned the main column, mounted a swift horse, and raced into the Weiyang Palace ahead of everyone else. He threw himself before Liu Bang's coffin, wailing with such agonizing grief that his cries echoed through the halls. This was a masterful piece of political theater. He not only washed his hands of the attempted murder of Fan Kuai, but also demonstrated his loyalty and prudence to Empress Lü. Moved by this display of sorrow, the Empress consoled him. "You have worked hard. Go and rest." But Chen Ping did not leave. He knew that the moment he stepped outside the palace, Lü Shu's poisonous sting would find him. He proactively requested to stay in the palace as an imperial bodyguard, keeping watch over the funeral hall day and night. Impressed, Empress Lü appointed him as the minister of the household, responsible for tutoring the young emperor. With this, Chen Ping had secured his right to survive in the era of Empress Lü. Years later, following the deaths of Xiao He and Cao Shen, Wang Ling was appointed Right Chancellor, while Chen Ping became Left Chancellor. By then, 8 years had passed since Liu Bang's death. Empress Lü was in total control, ruling with full imperial authority. She began preparations to grant noble titles to the members of her own Lü clan. She first consulted the Right Chancellor, Wang Ling. Wang Ling stood tall and replied bluntly, "It cannot be done." Empress Lü then turned her gaze toward Chen Ping and Zhou Bo. It was a life-or-death moment. Chen Ping once again displayed his ultimate pragmatism. He locked eyes with Zhou Bo and calmly uttered a single word. "It can." Historical records state that after the court session, Wang Ling angrily grabbed Chen Ping by the collar in the corridor, accusing him, "You swore a blood oath before the late emperor. If any who are not of the Liu clan become kings, the world shall unite to destroy them. Now you break that oath to support the Liu clan. When you die, how will you face the late emperor?" Chen Ping looked at his trembling friend with eyes devoid of guilt, possessing only a cold, almost brutal clarity. He spoke slowly. "In terms of upright confrontation in the court, I am indeed not your equal. But when it comes to preserving the Liu legacy and ensuring this vessel does not capsize amidst the crashing tides, you are not mine." Wang Ling had no answer. Soon after, Wang Ling retired in illness, and Chen Ping became the Right Chancellor, the apex of the civil order. Rational political logic suggests that Chen Ping's words might have been a later fabrication. Even if he truly thought so, he would never have said it openly. Chen Ping hadn't necessarily decided to preserve the Liu and destroy the Lü at that moment. Rather, it was a deep-seated instinct for dormancy. He knew that if all the old ministers were purged like Wang Ling, there would be no one left to influence the future. Survival was the only way to see tomorrow. As for what tomorrow would look like, no one knew. After the deaths of Xiao He and Cao Shen, the Han Empire no longer appointed a Grand Chancellor, Xiangguo, but returned to the original senior and junior roles of Right Chancellor and Left. In theory, Chen Ping, as the Right Chancellor, should have been the leader of the civil service. However, the Left Chancellor, Shen Yiji, a favorite of Empress Lü since their early days, resided in the palace. Every matter had to pass through him before reaching the Empress. Effectively, the empire's administrative power was monopolized, and Chen Ping became a puppet chancellor. Did Chen Ping resist? No. He endured in silence. Even when Empress Lü later bypassed the chancellors entirely to reinstate the position of Grand Chancellor for her nephew, Chen Ping remained silent. During those years of Empress Lü's reign, the air in Chang'an was thick with suffocating suspicion and political assassination. For Chen Ping, it was a dance on the edge of a blade. Though he had secured his life by supporting the Lü clan's titles, the crisis was far from over. His greatest enemy was not the Empress, but her sister, Lü Shu. This woman had never forgotten who had carried the secret order to take her husband's head. She watched him like a venomous scorpion, constantly whispering slanders into the Empress's ear. Chen Ping, as Chancellor, ignores all affairs of state. He spends his days in drunken revelry and trifles with women. For any politician who cherished his reputation, these were devastating accusations. But Chen Ping's reaction was unexpected. Instead of curbing his behavior, he leaned into it, letting his banquets and songs continue through the night. This was not decadence, it was extreme political camouflage. Chen Ping knew that in the eyes of a paranoid ruler, a brilliant man who was greedy, lustful, and lacked ambition was far safer than a patriot who was clean, diligent, and worried for the nation. Empress Lü fell for the ruse. She even mocked her sister Lü Shu to her face. They say the petty whims of a woman's heart are not to be trusted. Chancellor Chen and I are of one mind. Ignore those idle rumors. Chen Ping thanked her humbly. In the moment he bowed his head, he successfully hid beneath the umbrella of protection the Empress had personally provided for him. Yet, behind the facade of a drunken stupor, Chen Ping's gaze remained cold. He knew that playing small could only save his own life, not stabilize the empire. The Han court at this time was like a broken mechanism. The group of founding heroes led by Zhou Bo held the military but lacked political strategy, while the civil ministers led by Chen Ping had the intellect, but not a single soldier. It was then that a strategist named Liu Jia paid a secret visit to Chen Ping. Liu Jia saw through the disguise and said directly, "The safety of the world lies in the harmony between the general and the chancellor. If they are in accord, the soldiers will follow. If they are at odds, the ambitious will seize the opportunity. Why do you not proactively seek out Grand Commandant Zhou Bo and form a deep bond?" Chen Ping realized that to accumulate strength in the darkness, he had to mend his relationship with those old brothers. So, Chen Ping took 500 catties of gold to celebrate Zhou Bo's birthday, presenting him with lavish gifts and feasts. Zhou Bo reciprocated the gesture. These two men, who had been forcibly tied together by Liu Bang's bedside, finally completed a spiritual union under the shadow of Empress Lü's high-pressure rule. A schemer and a pure soldier shook hands in the dark. Chen Ping began his long wait. He disguised himself as a submissive puppet, watching the Lü clan occupy key positions and the court become tattered and chaotic. Day after day he drank and played, appearing as a thoroughly withdrawn mediocrity. But only he knew he was waiting for the one natural law that no one could escape: the death of Empress Lü. East of Chang'an, before the gates of the Bashang military encampment, Grand Commandant Zhou Bo and Liu Zhang, the Marquis of Zhushu and brother of the King of Qi, arrived with dozens of the Grand Commandant's personal guards. The gates of the Bashang camp were shut tight. Up on the watchtowers, guards drew their bows and knocked their arrows, shouting, "The Northern Army Command, halt! Trespassers will be executed." A guard of the Grand Commandant rode forward, holding high the Grand Commandant's tally. "The Grand Commandant is here in person. Open the gates immediately." Yet the guards paid no heed to his status as the nominal supreme military commander of the empire, merely repeating, "The Northern Army command. Halt! Trespassers will be executed." The commandant's guard spurred his horse a few steps forward, but before he could utter a word, the whistling of crossbow bolts tore through the air. Over a dozen bolts struck the ground just paces ahead of him. Terrified, the guard wheeled his horse around. The Northern Army shouted again. "The Northern Army guards the capital region. We answer only to Imperial edicts and the Supreme General. Trespassers will be executed." Zhou personally spurred his horse forward, completely ignoring the warning shots. With the imposing presence of an undefeated general, he narrowed his eyes at the watchtower and roared, "Who dares to execute me?" Silence fell over the watchtowers. All the soldiers involuntarily lowered their crossbows, but the heavy gates remained tightly shut. Pacing his horse back and forth before the gates, Zhou shouted, "The Grand Commandant is here! Have the Capital Commandant come see me!" Shortly after, the Capital Commandant hurried up the nearest watchtower and immediately bowed to Zhou. My lord, your humble servant is here, awaiting your instructions." Zhou demanded, "So you still recognize me? Then why aren't you opening the gates?" The Capital Commandant continued bowing incessantly from the tower. "Your lordship's teachings I have always kept in my heart. Without your patronage, how could I have ever become the Capital Commandant? But I am an appointed official of the Imperial Court, and the Northern Army is the court's military. Without an edict from the Emperor, I absolutely dare not open the gates for your lordship." Furious and exasperated, Zhou shouted, "You are right to obey the Emperor, and I obey the Emperor too. But if you don't open these gates today, you are making a grave mistake." The Capital Commandant remained firm but respectful. "Your lordship's words are all correct, but words alone are not proof. Please show me the Emperor's edict." Losing his temper, Zhou charged forward and began hacking at the camp gates with his sword, shouting as he struck, "Open the gates! Open the gates! Or else you can just shoot your Grand Commandant to death!" Liu Bang, the Marquis of Jukshu, rushed over to stop him. "Grand Commandant, wait a little longer. Didn't the Chancellor say so? He has a way to get you into the Northern Army camp. Let us just wait a bit longer." Why couldn't the dignified Grand Commandant of the Empire even order a military camp's gates to open? In the capital defense design of the First Chinese Empire, the vast capital environs outside the Imperial Palace fell entirely under the Capital Commandant. As a high-ranking official, the Capital Commandant commanded an elite field army. Stationed at Bashang, just north of Chang'an, this northern army could be traced directly back to the 50,000 elite crack troops who garrisoned Xianyang during the reign of the second emperor of Qin. By the early Han Dynasty, according to the precise records of the Book of Han, this standing army maintained a permanent force of over 30,000 men. Therefore, it could be said that the Northern Army was the lock on the gates of Chang'an. And now, the key to this lock, the military tally of the Northern Army, was gripped tightly in the hands of Empress Dowager Lü's clan. Before her death, she had elevated her nephew, Lu, the king of Zhao, to the position of Supreme General to command the Northern Army. Thus, from the Capital Commandant's perspective, refusing Grand Commandant Zhou's demand to enter was not just an adherence to military discipline, but a reflection of the Han Empire's cold, institutional design. Military power recognizes only the tally, not the man. Zhou couldn't help but look back towards Chang'an. He could only place his hopes on the man he had always despised as a treacherous scoundrel, Chancellor Chen Ping. The city of Chang'an was just waking up, but the Empire's center of power could already smell blood. Inside the estate of the Prime Chancellor, Grand Censor Cao Zhu, nominally one of the three excellencies of the Empire, was respectfully kneeling on his mat, reporting state affairs to the Empire's administrative head, Prime Chancellor Liu Chan. Suddenly, a clamor shattered the morning's dead silence. The chief of the Imperial attendants, fully armored, was dragged into the Grand Hall by two guards. Covered in blood and riddled with wounds, he gasped heavily as he scrambled towards Liu Chan. "Prime Chancellor! Disaster! The sky is falling!" Then he hesitated, glancing at Cao Zhu. The Grand Censor attempted to rise and excuse himself. However, the Prime Chancellor waved his hand, signaling him to stay seated. "Lord Cao is a childhood friend and confidant of the late Emperor. He is one of us. No need for evasion. Speak!" The confidant jerked his head up, his eyes filled with despair. "General Guan Ying has defected." "What?" Liu Chan slammed the table and stood up, his face instantly turning deathly pale. "Didn't he send back a victory dispatch just the day before yesterday, saying the King of Qi had retreated his troops back to his kingdom?" "It was a stalling tactic," the confidant roared hoarsely. Guan Ying has struck a secret pact with the King of Qi. He told the King of Qi to hold his ground while he prepares to turn his army around and march back on Chang'an. Deathly silence fell over the grand hall. Cao Zhu kept his head down, not daring to utter a single word. The confidant grabbed Lu Chan's legs and cried out, "Prime Chancellor, we can wait no longer. We must strike first. You must immediately lead troops into the palace to control the emperor and instantly execute the King of Qi's brother who remains in Chang'an, the Marquis of Zhuxu, Liu Bang. Use his head to bless our banners." Lu Chan froze, a flicker of panic and hesitation flashing in his eyes. Liu Bang, but he is the son-in-law of Supreme General Lu. He is the current emperor's brother-in-law. The confidant roared in despair. Even though he is a son-in-law of the Lu family, his surname is Liu. Amidst the chaos in the hall, no one noticed Cao Zhu quietly backing out. He boarded his carriage and shouted, "Quick, drive, go!" Just as Cao Zhu's carriage was about to exit the Prime Chancellor's estate, 2 guards blocked its path, shouting sternly, "Prime Chancellor has ordered a lockdown. No one is allowed in or out." The driver looked back in terror. "My lord, what do we do?" Cao Zhu clenching his jaw, a flash of absolute resolve appeared in his eyes. "It's do or die. Ram through them. Charge out!" The carriage burst through the blockade like an arrow loosed from a bow. Inside the violently jolting cabin, Cao Zhu gripped the armrests tightly and ordered the driver, "To the Chancellor's estate. Find Chen Ping." In the institutional design of the early Han Dynasty, the supreme power of the empire was shared by the 3 excellencies. The Chancellor managed administration, the Grand Commandant controlled the military, and the Grand Censor oversaw the officials. This was a perfect iron triangle of power. However, in the actual exercise of power, this iron triangle was often broken for various reasons. The most typical examples were the establishment of the Prime Chancellor and the Supreme General. Lu Chan's appointment as Prime Chancellor directly usurped the administrative power of Chancellor Chen Ping. Lu's appointment as Supreme General completely stripped Grand Commandant Zhou Bo of his military authority. Among the 3 excellencies, the only one the Lu clan trusted and relied heavily upon was the Grand Censor, Cao Zhu. Why? Because since his youth, Cao Zhu had been the closest playmate and confidant of Emperor Hui of Han, Empress Dowager Lü's biological son. In the eyes of the Lu family, Cao Zhu wore the firm label of the Lu faction, which was why they were entirely off guard and allowed him to remain on site when the military secret was leaked. However, the Lu family made one fatal mistake. They forgot who Cao Zhu's father was. Cao Zhu's father was the second greatest founding meritocrat of the Great Han, the former Prime Chancellor who had fought alongside Liu Bang through mountains of corpses to conquer the realm, Cao Shen. Inside the Chancellor's estate, Chen Ping and Zhou Bo had stayed awake all night, still locked in secret negotiations. When Cao Zhu rushed in, they seemed to have expected him. Showing no panic, Chen Ping simply nodded and said, "If that is the case, we must strike immediately." He then slammed his finger onto the map. "Grand Commandant, you and Liu Bang will ride to Bashang at once, seize command of the Northern Army, and then march your forces back to storm Weiyang Palace." The young and hot-blooded Liu Bang stood up abruptly to object. "Chancellor, what about the Southern Army? Why not let the Grand Commandant take the Northern Army, while I lead men to incite a mutiny in the Southern Army?" Chen Ping stopped him coldly. "The Southern Army's forces are concentrated and strictly controlled by Lu Chan. Going there is a suicide mission. As long as we control the Northern Army, we control the entire situation." Zhou Bo furrowed his brow. "If Lu Chan directly leads the Southern Army to breach Weiyang Palace and takes the Emperor hostage, what good is taking the Northern Army? Furthermore, I cannot even guarantee that I can enter the Northern Army camp." "I will handle your entry into the Northern Army." Chen Ping's tone was flat. "As for inside the palace, I have my own arrangements." Though riddled with doubt, Zhou Bo and Liu Bang had no choice but to depart immediately for Bashang, as time was of the essence. Inside the Chancellor's estate, only Chen Ping and the still traumatized Cao Zhu remained. Chen Ping slowly turned around, his eyes locking dead onto Cao Zhu. "Lord Cao," Chen Ping delivered a bone-chilling sentence in a completely flat tone. "Every civil and military official in the court knows that you have always been the Lu clan's man." Cao Zhu's knees gave way, nearly dropping him to the floor. "Chancellor, I am willing to fight to the death. Please, Chancellor, show me a way to survive." "Very well," Chen Ping said, still completely impassive. "I am giving you a suicide mission. You will charge into Weiyang Palace immediately. Find the commandant of the palace guards and have him seal the palace gates. If the gates cannot be held, you will charge directly into the main hall, rally the gentlemen of the household, and seal the doors to the main hall. In short, you must never let Liu Chan set foot in the main hall and reach the emperor." Cao Zhu's face turned deathly pale as he shook his head in despair. "The commandant of the palace guards will listen to me. And the gentlemen of the household, would they defy the chief of the Imperial attendants to obey me?" "The commandant of the palace guards will listen to you. I have already arranged it." Chen Ping spoke with absolute certainty. "And the gentlemen of the household will listen to you as well." Cao Zhu still looked hesitant. "Liu Chan commands the southern army. Even if the commandant and the gentlemen listen to me, we absolutely cannot hold them off." "I never expected you to hold them off." Chen Ping patted Cao Zhu on the shoulder. "If Liu Chan insists on storming the palace gates, you will indeed face certain death. However, the moment he dares to order an attack on the main hall of Weiyang Palace, he cements the heinous crime of armed treason. At that instant, the Liu clan will be reduced to ashes. Lord Cao, even if you die, you will be remembered for eternity as a loyal subject who gave his life for the emperor of the Great Han." Cao Zhu stared fixedly at Chen Ping, clenched his jaw, bowed deeply, and turned to leave. Watching Cao Zhu's retreating figure, Chen Ping let out a long breath. He immediately ordered the Chancellor's personal guards to mobilize. Their target? The estate of the Marquis of Kuzhou. If the capital commandant and the Northern Army formed the outer defense line protecting the entire metropolitan sphere, then the task of protecting the core area of the Imperial Palace fell to the commandant of the palace guards and the Southern Army. Stationed in the southern part of Chang'an, near Weiyang and Changle palaces, this garrison force dedicated to protecting the Empress Dowager and the Emperor was known as the Southern Army. In the early Han Dynasty, the Southern Army boasted a total strength of nearly 20,000 men. Unlike the field army nature of the Northern Army, the Southern Army was a purely defensive force with an exquisitely detailed command structure. However, the Southern Army was only responsible for the outer perimeter and gate security of the Imperial compound. The true core area where the Emperor lived, the inner sanctum of Weiyang Palace, was protected by another independent, high-ranking Nine Minister, the Chief of the Imperial Attendants. The Chief of the Imperial Attendants commanded a group of personal bodyguards and noble scions who reported directly to the Emperor. In terms of numbers, the gentlemen's forces were far inferior to the Southern Army, but they possessed absolute loyalty and zeal for the Emperor. A subject leading troops to attack the Emperor's sleeping quarters was termed regicide and high treason. The moment Liu Chan took this step, he would cease to be the all-powerful Prime Chancellor and become an openly rebelling traitor. At that point, not only would the fiercely loyal gentleman fight him to the death, but even the low-ranking soldiers within his own Southern Army would waver. In fact, the chief of the Imperial attendants at the time was none other than the Liu family confidant Cao Zhu had just seen fleeing back from Guan Ying's army. But what did that matter? No pleasantries, no announcements. Chen Ping led the Chancellor's personal guards and stormed into the estate of the Marquis of Kuzhou, instantly neutralizing the founding patriarch of the Great Han, Li Shang. Hearing the commotion, Li Shang's son, Li Ji, rushed into the main hall and roared at Chen Ping. "Chancellor, what is the meaning of this? Didn't we have an agreement?" Chen Ping remained remarkably calm, playing a game of Go with Li Shang. "Your father and I are close friends, and you are close friends with Supreme General Lu Lu." Chen Ping looked up. "At a matter of life and death, something like friendship is utterly unreliable. Controlling your father is merely to help you make up your mind." Indeed, Chen Ping had long grown accustomed to the dark side of human nature. He would never gamble his fate on ethereal verbal pacts. What he demanded was absolute collateral. Cold sweat dripped down Li Ji's face. He looked at the armored soldiers with drawn swords in the courtyard, then at his white-haired, expressionless father, who was still playing Go with Chen Ping. Finally, he slumped his shoulders in defeat. "What do you want me to do?" "You did very well previously." Chen Ping lowered his voice. "Now for the final step. You will go see Lu Lu immediately. Use whatever excuse necessary to convince him to hand over the Northern Army's tally. If he absolutely refuses, the bottom line is, you must lure him in person out of the Northern Army camp." Li Ji nodded and turned to leave. The grand hall fell silent once more. The veteran General Li Shang looked at Chen Ping and sighed. These two old foxes, who had spent most of their lives tasting blood on the edge of a blade, sat in the very eye of the storm that would decide the fate of the empire, acting as if nothing were amiss as they continued to play their stones in total silence. Shortly after, an armored guard reported in a low voice from outside the door. Chancellor, Jitong, the Marquis of Xiangping, has arrived. Li Shang's finger paused. He raised his eyes to look at Chen Ping. Why call that boy Jitong over at a time like this? Chen Ping placed a black stone on the board. Jitong is a good boy. His father died early, but at the end of the day, he is also a fellow townsman from Fengpei. And most importantly? Chen Ping turned his head to look at the young Marquis, peering inside from beyond the doorway. Never forget, he is the prefect of the Imperial Tally. The early Han court was crowded with founding meritocrats of all ranks. Yet this so-called meritocrat faction was far from a monolith. It was fractured into two major camps, the Fengpei faction and the Dang Commandery faction. The Fengpei faction, led by figures like Xiao He, Cao Shen, Zhou Bo, and Lu Wan, were purebred fellow townsmen of Emperor Liu Bang. During Liu Bang's era, their power overshadowed the realm. However, after Empress Dowager Lü took power, in order to consolidate the Lü clan's rule, the Fengpei faction faced systematic marginalization and deliberate suppression. Standing head-to-head against the Fengpei faction was the Dang Commandery faction. Empress Dowager Lü herself hailed from Dang Commandery. Under her patronage, generals from Dang Commandery experienced a meteoric rise. Aside from the scions of the Lü family, the two most prestigious founding veterans in this faction were Guan Ying, a great general of cavalry origins, and Li Shang, who could speak directly with the Empress Dowager. Chen Ping, however, was from Chen Liu Commandery. He was neither a fellow townsman of Fengpei nor a core member of Dang Commandery. He wasn't even an original follower from Liu Bang's earliest days. Rather, he was a defected Chu general who joined halfway through. Yet it was precisely his status as an absolute outsider, floating beyond all factions, that allowed him to feign allegiance to the Lü family to gain their trust, while simultaneously spending over a decade secretly threading the needle to mend the rift between the Fengpei and Dang Commandery factions. However, Chen Ping understood human nature far too well. He coldly pressed the dagger of pragmatism against the throat of the Li family, whom he could not fully trust, forcing Li Ji to betray his own friend. The afternoon sun scorched the yellow earth of Bashang. The urgent clatter of a carriage and horses approached from the direction of Chang'an. A black carriage dashed forth, braking violently before the barricades. The young prefect of the Imperial Tally, Jitong, held high a long staff adorned with a yak tail. The Imperial Tally, the symbol of the supreme authority. Grand Commandant Zhou Bo, receive the Emperor's edict. Jitong stood on the carriage shafts, his voice echoing outside the vast, empty camp gates. By the decree of the Son of Heaven, effective immediately, Grand Commandant Zhou Bo shall take full command of the Northern Army. This was a highly unorthodox promulgation. No yellow silk, no written edict, not even a palace attendant, just a weightless verbal transmission. The capital commandant stood on the camp wall, asking calmly, Lord Ji, where is the written edict? Where is the Northern Army's military tally? The air froze. Jitong swallowed hard, but he glared at the capital commandant with an immensely oppressive gaze and shouted sternly, Lord Commandant, the Imperial tally is in my hands. What do you suspect I would dare use this tally to issue a fake decree and forge the Emperor's command? This was what Chen Ping had taught him, to use unquestionable absolute authority to crush low-level procedural justice. The capital commandant fell silent. He dared not claim the tally was fake, but rules were rules. Without the military tally, he absolutely dared not open the gates lightly. He tried to use silence to stall for time, waiting for instructions from Lulu. In this hair-trigger moment of life and death, the deputy commandant ran up the watchtower, panting heavily. With an ashen face, he whispered into the capital commandant's ear, My lord, Supreme General Lulu suddenly left the camp at noon. His whereabouts are unknown. This sentence made the capital commandant instantly realize what was happening. Clenching his jaw, he gave a sharp order. Open the gates! Welcome the Grand Commandant! The gates of the Northern Army finally opened. Zhou Bo let out a long sigh of relief and spurred his horse into the camp. Just then, another flurry of hoofbeats kicked up a cloud of dust. A senior official rushed to the front of Zhou Bo's horse and held high a red and black wooden box. Inside was the Northern Army's military tally, surrendered by Lulu. All suspense was gone. Accompanied by Jitong, Zhou Bo strode up to the commander's platform. Holding the bronze military tally aloft before the assembled officers and soldiers of the Northern Army, he roared, Those who stand with the Lü clan, bear your right arms. Those who stand with the Liu clan, bear your left arms. Led by the capital commandant, the 20,000-strong army, like a wheat field swept by a gale, uniformly tore off the armor on their left arms. The roaring chants of "Long live! Long live! Long live!" shattered the clouds over Chang'an. The Northern Army had completely changed hands. Wasting not a single second, Zhou immediately mustered 1,000 of the most elite armored cavalry and handed them to Liu Bang. Storm the palace at maximum speed. Since its rise during the Warring States period, the military tally was not just a token of trust. It was the hallmark of the ancient Chinese military, moving towards high professionalization and nationalization. The tally was usually divided into two halves. The right half remained with the emperor, while the left half was given to the frontline commanding general. Only when the two halves of the tally fit together seamlessly could the army be legally mobilized. In the institutional design of the early Han Dynasty, the function of the Grand Commandant was actually closer to today's Secretary of Defense, or Chief of the General Staff. He possessed supreme military administrative power and strategic planning authority, but he had no direct command over the troops. Through long-term professional training, Han soldiers were indoctrinated with the absolute, machine-like logic of recognizing only the tally, not the man. Let alone the Grand Commandant, even if the Lord of Heaven himself descended, as long as he didn't have that seamlessly matching bronze tally, the grassroots soldiers would absolutely not budge a single step. So the question arises, even if the prefect of the Imperial tally, Ji Tong, could forge an Imperial decree, how exactly did Supreme General Lu hand over the Northern Army's military tally? 1 hour earlier, Lu, the king of Zhao, was restless inside the Northern Army camp. His cousin, Prime Chancellor Liu Chan, had brought news. General Guan Ying might be defecting and plotting rebellion. His Northern Army needed to make preparations early. Make preparations? How? Guan Ying commanded a massive army of 200,000 men. If he truly attacked, what use would his mere 50,000 Northern Army soldiers be? Just then, in his moment of utmost helplessness, his most trusted confidant, a man like an elder brother to him, Li Ji, walked into the central command tent, looking completely relaxed. Why is the Grand General so fraught with worry? Li Ji patted Lu's shoulder, his voice as gentle as a spring breeze. The matter regarding Guan Ying might not even be true, and it's already confirmed that the Qi army has retreated to their kingdom. Chancellor Liu Chan is guarding the Imperial palace. Before the situation is clear, what use is your anxiety? Lu replied, "If I don't worry, what else can I do? Those who achieve great things must carry heavy burdens with ease. Rather than bearing this weight, Grand General, why not leave the camp with us and go hunting?" Desperately yearning to escape reality, Lu clutched at this like a drowning man catching a straw. Absurdly, he agreed. To appear relaxed, he brought only a handful of personal guards, mounted his war horse, and followed Li Ji out of that Northern Army camp, the only place that could guarantee his life. However, as this small hunting party passed by the estate of Lu's aunt, Lu Shu, the white-haired woman charged out of her gates. Pointing at Lu on horseback, she hurled bitter curses, tears of despair streaking her face. "You utter fool! At a life-and-death juncture like this, when generals and chancellors are plotting treason, you dare to leave the army to go hunting? You've thrown away your military power, and now our entire Lu family, young and old, will soon die without a burial place." Lu Shu's curses struck like a heavy hammer, completely shattering the psychological buffer Lu had just built. Terrified, he pulled hard on the reins, wanting to turn back to camp. At that moment, Li Ji spoke to him with feigned utmost sincerity. "Grand General, hand over your military power and return to your kingdom of Zhao. You are no match for the king of Qi or Guan Ying. If you surrender your command now and go back to Zhao, you can still enjoy a life of wealth and glory. If you drag this out any longer, the consequences will be unimaginable. The whole world knows we are the closest of friends. Would I, as your elder brother, push you into a pit of fire?" The weak-willed Lu looked at Li Ji's sincere face. In extreme fear and exhaustion, he muttered to himself, "Yes, my brother wouldn't lie to me." He handed the military tally of the Northern Army to Li Ji. The sudden collapse of Lu was, in truth, the inevitable result of the Lu clan's inherent weakness. Empress Dowager Lü could give her nephew military power, but she could not give him competence. Even though the Liu clan had suffered continuous political suppression during Empress Dowager Lü's 15-year reign, the military foundation carved into their very bones remained profound. In stark contrast, Lu had been forcibly hoisted to the empire's highest position, relying entirely on nepotism. Chen Ping saw right through this weakness and incompetence, which was why he dispatched Li Ji. In this psychological warfare, Li Ji merely rubbed salt into Lu Lu's festering wounds, offering him the illusion of a dignified surrender. And while Li Ji, who delivered this fatal strike, achieved the monumental merit of preserving the Liu clan, he also went down in history bearing the eternal infamy of Li Ji betrays his friend. Still entirely oblivious to everything that had transpired at Bashang, Prime Chancellor Liu Chan finally made his move. Leading his trusted troops, he charged toward Weiyang Palace. He intended to seize control of the emperor. Initially, everything went smoothly. At the outermost Sima gate of Weiyang Palace, there wasn't even a semblance of resistance. The Southern Army guards simply opened the gates and let them through. However, as Liu Chan's army approached the Duan Gate in front of the main hall of Weiyang Palace, they found it tightly shut. "Open the gates!" Liu Chan's deputy shouted fiercely. The captain of the Duan Gate stood atop the high palace wall, replying expressionlessly. "By the strict orders of the commandant of the palace guards, the palace gates are locked. No one is allowed to enter." Burning with rage, Liu Chan abruptly drew his sword, spurred his horse forward, and roared, "Insolence! As Prime Chancellor, I command the Southern Army and am responsible for the security of the entire Imperial Palace. Enough nonsense. Open the gates immediately." Facing the all-powerful Prime Chancellor and a dark mass of troops, the captain of the gate had little choice. The heavy Duan Gate was forced slowly open. But the moment Liu Chan crossed that threshold, a profoundly ominous premonition suddenly rose in his heart. Sure enough, passing through the Duan Gate and entering the vast square before the main hall of Weiyang Palace, Liu Chan discovered that before the doors of the main hall, the commandant of the palace guards and Grand Censor Cao Zhu, leading the fully armed guards of the gentlemen of the household, stood dead in their tracks like a wall of iron. "Cao Zhu, you dare block me!" Liu Chan raised his sword, threatening, "If you don't step aside, do not blame the Prime Chancellor for initiating a massacre." Though his legs were turning to jelly, Cao Zhu clung desperately to the trump card Chen Ping had taught him. Pointing directly at Liu Chan's nose, he roared with all his might. "Liu Chan, the Emperor has issued no edict summoning you to the palace. If you dare lead troops even half a step up the stairs of the main hall today, you are harboring treasonous intent. It is outright rebellion." Ultimately, Liu Chan was merely an incompetent man, forcibly elevated by his aunt. He dared not order a forceful assault, yet he was unwilling to retreat. Incredibly, he just stood there with his army, like a bewildered, trapped beast, wasting the final countdown of his life in the square before the hall. Hours later, the setting sun was the color of blood, and a fierce gale suddenly whipped up. A sound of thundering hooves swept in from outside the palace like muffled thunder. Liu Zhang, the Marquis of Zhuxiu, leading 1,000 elite iron cavalry, descended like troops from the heavens, charging into the Weiyang Palace Square. "Liu Chan is committing treason! By the order of the Grand Commandant, kill without mercy!" Liu Zhang's roar echoed in the howling wind. At this moment, the mandate of heaven abandoned the Liu clan. The sudden gale, sending sand and stones flying, shattered the morale of the Southern Army under Liu Chan's command. Facing the elite Northern Army charging like tigers descending a mountain, they instantly scattered and fled like birds and beasts. The once imperious Prime Chancellor Liu Chan, consumed by extreme terror, abandoned his army and fled in utter disgrace. Finally, in a secluded latrine in a corner of Weiyang Palace, he was caught by the pursuing Liu Zhang, who pierced his chest with a single sword thrust. Liu Chan's death was both comical and pathetic. He made one fatal mistake: hesitation. In this standoff at Weiyang Palace, there was a crucial figure overlooked by many: that commandant of the Weiyang Palace Guards who defended the main hall to the death. Historical records only note that his name was Zhu. They didn't even leave his surname. Yet months after the new emperor ascended the throne, he was heavily rewarded with a fiefdom of 400 households. This was by no means an ordinary tale of a loyal subject protecting his master. At the time, Chang'an primarily had two major palaces, Weiyang Palace and Changle Palace. Therefore, there were two commandants of the palace guards. The commandant of Changle Palace was Empress Dowager Lü's grandnephew, Liu Gengshi. For Weiyang Palace, the most important palace in the empire, its commandant Zhu was undoubtedly one of their own, meticulously hand-picked and deeply trusted by the Liu family. Yet it was exactly this commandant, who should have been dead-set loyal to the Liu family, who defected at the most critical moment of life and death, standing with Cao Zhu to block the Prime Chancellor outside the main hall. Who secretly turned him? Who transformed this die-hard loyalist of the Liu clan into a bulwark for the Liu clan? Following Liu Chan's death, the tightly closed doors of the main hall of Weiyang Palace finally, slowly pushed open one panel. A close attendant, holding another imperial tally representing supreme imperial power, walked down the steps trembling. He had come on the emperor's orders to console the northern army, which had just experienced a bloody battle before the hall. In the actions of an emperor, there is never the word simple. The 16-year-old teenage emperor, who had hidden behind the palace doors all day, finally made a political declaration. From the moment he chose to console the northern army, the nature of this coup fundamentally changed. It was no longer a struggle between two political factions fighting for power, but a lawful execution of the consort kin of the Lü clan on behalf of the state's orthodox loyalty. But why did the emperor's political validation come so late? The reason is simple. Although his surname was Liu, the blood of the Lü family also flowed in his veins. Being a Liu gave him the possibility of ascending the throne, but the Lü family was the ultimate deciding force that actually crowned him. Bloodlust clouding his eyes, Liu Zhang forcefully dragged the attendant holding the tally onto his own war chariot. What he wanted was not just consolation, he wanted the absolute permission brought by this imperial tally. Borrowing the emperor's tally, Liu Zhang led the great army and slaughtered their way into the Lü family's stronghold, Changle Palace, as if entering an unpopulated land. Liu Gengshi, the commandant of Changle Palace, was hacked to death by a flurry of blades in despair. With this as the beginning, a massacre targeting the entire Lü clan spiraled completely out of control under the night sky of Chang'an. The sunlight once again shone on the flying eaves of Weiyang Palace. Chang'an welcomed a new day amidst the glow of blood. Over 24 hours, Chancellor Chen Ping and Grand Commandant Zhou Bo completed an unbelievable, desperate counterkill. Using lies, betrayal, and extreme cold-bloodedness, they purged the empire's tumor, fulfilling the White Horse Oath sworn years ago. If anyone not of the Liu clan is crowned king, let the whole empire unite to strike him down. It seems the story should end here, a perfect, heroic conclusion of loyal subjects saving the nation. But in the true political world, once the machinery of slaughter is set in motion, it is very hard to stop. At this very moment, Chang'an was enveloped in an even more massive, even more suffocating mystery. Since the Lü family had been slaughtered clean, what about those imperial princes who had half of the Lü family's blood flowing in them? Or to ask even more directly, what about the current reigning emperor, who just last night sent someone out with the imperial tally, actively acknowledging the coup's legitimacy? The 24 hours in the imperial capital would eventually draw to a close, but the stench of blood was far from dissipating. In early 180 BC, the palace of the king of Qi was surrounded by heavy troops. Yet the soldiers laying siege to the king were his own, the army of Qi. Leading them was the Chancellor of Qi. Shortly before, Liu Xiang, the king of Qi, had prepared to raise an army to revolt against the Lü clan, who then controlled the imperial court. However, the Chancellor adamantly refused, arguing that since the Lü clan had committed no public crimes, and the emperor had issued no edict for their suppression, any military action would be nothing short of high treason. Liu Xiang planned to eliminate the obstructionist chancellor, but the plot leaked. The chancellor, who held the actual power in the realm, deployed troops to surround the royal palace. However, Liu Xiang was the eldest grandson of Liu Bang, the founding emperor Gaozu. The chancellor dared only to blockade the palace, not to launch an assault. As the two sides remained in a deadlock, the commandant of Qi arrived, claiming he wished to assist the chancellor. Trusting him, the chancellor handed over command of the siege. Instead, the commandant turned the army to surround the chancellor's own residence, forcing the chancellor to commit suicide. Regaining his freedom, Liu Xiang rewarded his supporters, opened the royal treasury to recruit more soldiers, and raised the banner of armed resistance against the Lü clan. 1. Liu Xiang, the king of Qi. Liu Xiang's father was Liu Fei, the illegitimate eldest son of Liu Bang. When Liu Bang enfeoffed his kinsman, he carved out a vast territory of 73 counties for his eldest son, making Qi, along with Chu, the most powerful princely realms. This made Liu Fei a thorn in the side of the Lü family. They suppressed him repeatedly, even attempting to poison him at one point. To survive, Liu Fei ceded large portions of his territory multiple times, allowing the court to establish the states of Lu, Langya, and Lu within the original borders of Qi, significantly weakening its power. Liu Fei eventually died in a state of constant fear and anxiety, leaving behind 3 sons. The eldest, Liu Xiang, inherited the title of King of Qi, while his brothers Liu Zhang and Liu Xingzhu were made marquises and summoned to the capital, Chang'an, to serve as political hostages. Following the death of Empress Dowager Lü, the 3 brothers conspired repeatedly and finally became the first to raise the flag of rebellion against the Lü clan. While Qi was powerful, its strength had waned after being repeatedly partitioned. More critically, Liu Xiang was not the eldest grandson of the legal line. Not only was the reigning emperor technically the legitimate grandson of Liu Bang, but among the other vassal kings, there were those who far surpassed Liu Xiang in seniority and age. Liu Ze, the king of Langya, was one such man. 2. Liu Ze, the king of Langya. Theoretically, Liu Ze had almost no chance of becoming emperor. He was a cousin of Liu Bang, yet also a son-in-law of the Lü family, having married the daughter of Fan Kuai and Lu Shu. In his youth, he joined the military as an imperial attendant, Lang Zhong, and distinguished himself in the various wars to suppress rebellions after the founding of the Han Dynasty. He was eventually enfeoffed as a marquis and promoted to the rank of Grand General, commanding the Northern Army, the elite force responsible for the defense of Chang'an. After Liu Bang's death, as the Lü faction began to suppress the Liu clansmen, Liu Ze became deeply uneasy while holding command of the Northern Army. He sent a strategist to persuade Empress Lü that he was willing to surrender his military power in exchange for being made a vassal king. Delighted, the Empress carved out a large tract of land from Qi to create the Kingdom of Langya and appointed Liu Ze as its king. Liu Ze immediately handed over the Northern Army and left the treacherous capital of Chang'an. By the time the Empress regretted letting go of one of the few military talents of the Liu lineage, Liu Ze had already reached his fiefdom. When Liu Xiang raised his army, he sent an envoy to invite Liu Ze, his great-uncle, to join the cause, humbly claiming he lacked military talent and hoped Liu Ze would lead the Grand Army. Liu Ze arrived in Qi, only to be detained on Liu Xiang's orders. The army of Langya was promptly seized by Qi. The formidable king of Langya found himself a prisoner in the palace of Qi. 3. Liu Zhao, the king of Chu. While Liu Ze was only a cousin, Liu Zhao, the king of Chu, was Liu Bang's younger brother. He was the most senior and prestigious member of the surviving Liu royalty. Although Liu Zhao was elderly and frail at the time, his son, Liu Yingke, served as the minister of the Imperial clan, Zhongzheng, in Chang'an, the ultimate arbiter of bloodline and legal legitimacy. Most importantly, Chu was the second largest vassal state, and its power was not to be underestimated. After Liu Xiang began his open defiance, Chu likely initiated its own military mobilizations. While official records are vague on Chu's movements, they explicitly record the Lü clan's reaction. They feared the armies of Qi and Chu. Facing resistance from the 2 most powerful kings, the Lü faction handed their forces to a fellow townsman, General Guan Ying. They hoped this veteran general, who had fought his way up from the bottom alongside Liu Bang, could defeat the armies of Qi and Chu. Guan Ying led an army of 200,000 out of the Hangu Pass to the strategic stronghold of Xingyang, facing off against the Qi forces. Before the first blow was struck, a flurry of messengers converged on Guan Ying's tent. The most critical were secret envoys from Chancellor Chen Ping and Grand Commandant Zhou Bo. From that moment on, Guan Ying held his position and refused to move, while advising the Qi army not to advance. Knowing he was no match for Guan Ying, and having received a promise that Guan Ying would oppose the Lü clan, Liu Xiang withdrew his troops and returned to Qi. 4. Liu Sui, the king of Zhao. While the stalemate held on the front lines, a tectonic coup erupted in Chang'an. Within a single day, Chen Ping and Zhou Bo seized control of the Northern Army and the political apparatus. The king of Lu, Lu Chan, and the king of Zhao, Lu Lu, were executed. Discussion turned to the vacant thrones. The ministers decided to restore the title of the king of Lu to its original name, the king of Liang, and gave it to the emperor's youngest brother. The title of king of Zhao was given to Liu Sui. Liu Sui was the son of Liu Yu, the youngest son of Liu Bang, and the second king of Zhao to be murdered by Empress Lü. His appointment represented the total dismantling of the Lü political ecosystem by the meritocracy faction led by Chen Ping and Zhou Bo, signaling the start of a thorough purge. Although Liu Sui was of the purest imperial bloodline, the state of Zhao lacked the raw power of Qi or Chu. Furthermore, he was a prince with no political foundation. Even his father had been buried with the rights of a commoner after offending the Lü clan. Because of this, the Zhao lineage played no significant role in the political entanglements following the coup. However, it is noteworthy that in earlier political communications, the position of King of Zhao had been reserved for Liu Zhang, the Marquis of Zhushu, who had performed great feats in the destruction of the Lü clan. The position of King of Liang was intended for the youngest of the three Qi brothers, Liu Xingju, the Marquis of Dongmu. Both men had indeed contributed immensely to the coup. How to make them accept this reality and appease their ambitions became a problem the ministers had to handle with extreme delicacy.
5. Liu Hong, the Emperor.
At this moment, Liu Zhang, the Marquis of Zhushu, and Liu Xingju, the Marquis of Dongmu, were still unaware of the kingmaker's ultimate design. It was then that Liu Ze, the king of Langya, who had been held under house arrest, persuaded the king of Qi to release him. Under the pretense of lobbying for the king of Qi's ascension to the throne, Liu Ze traveled to Chang'an. Upon his arrival, he immediately entered into urgent consultations with the high officials and nobles who had orchestrated the coup. A dire question was now looming. The Lü clan had been suppressed, but what about the emperor? The reigning emperor, Liu Hong, was 16 years old, the fourth son of the late Emperor Hui. Although he was undeniably the grandson of the founder, Liu Bang, the blood of the Lü clan still flowed through his veins. The ministers were consumed by dread. They feared that if these descendants of the Lü lineage were allowed to survive, who could say what vengeance they might exact once they came of age? Under this crushing political reality, a consensus was swiftly reached. The current emperor must be deposed. The legal justification was provided by Liu Yingke, the minister of the Imperial clan, who held the sole authority over Imperial lineage. They simply declared that all of Emperor Hui's sons, including the reigning emperor, were of spurious bloodline, fabricated by the Lü clan. In their eyes, these children were not the true descendants of Emperor Hui at all. This convenient logic also resolved the issue of the Qi brothers, Liu Zhang and Liu Xingju. If the late emperor's sons were all frauds, the kingdom of Liang would naturally become vacant. Coupled with the execution of the king of Yan, also of the Lü clan, 2 more thrones were now available to appease the ambitious brothers. It was a perfect political compromise. But then the ultimate question surfaced: who would be the next emperor? On the surface, 2 of the 3 Qi brothers were present in the capital, and Liu Ze had seemingly arrived to champion their cause. However, the first to voice opposition to the king of Qi was Liu Ze himself. His argument struck a lethal chord. The king of Qi's maternal family is no better than the Lü clan. His uncle is a man of legendary cruelty. To crown the king of Qi is to invite a second era of consort tyrants. Strangely, Liu Xiang's 2 brothers remained silent. The only logical inference is that they believed betraying their elder brother would yield greater personal rewards than supporting him. With the most powerful candidate, the king of Qi, disqualified, who remained to take the throne. 6. Liu Heng, the king of Dai. Amidst these tense calculations, a vassal king emerged from the shadows, a man so low profile he had been all but forgotten. Liu Heng, the king of Dai. As the 4th son of Liu Bang, Liu Heng was 24 years old. His mother was Lady Bo, formerly a concubine of the insurgent king of Wei. After her capture by General Han Xin, she was sent to the Han Palace. Following a single chance encounter with Liu Bang, she gave birth to Liu Heng. However, she never won the emperor's favor. This lack of affection proved to be her salvation, as it spared her from the lethal jealousy of Empress Lü, making her one of the few lucky concubines allowed to leave the capital and live with her son in his fiefdom. Years earlier, after Empress Lü had caused the deaths of 3 successive kings of Zhao, she summoned Liu Heng to take the vacant throne. Liu Heng, however, declined the honor under the guise of guarding the frontier, thereby escaping the doom of being controlled by the Lü clan in the capital. In the eyes of the kingmakers, Liu Heng possessed two unparalleled virtues. First, a weak maternal background. As a former captive, Lady Bo had no influential clan behind her. Her only brother, Bo Zhao, was a mere minor official handling administrative chores in the borderlands. Second, Liu Heng was reputed to be benevolent and filial. Or, in political terms, he appeared far less ambitious and much more malleable than the king of Qi. While these pragmatic reasons could not be voiced in open court, the ministers produced an impeccable, unassailable justification. Liu Heng was the eldest surviving son of the founding emperor, Liu Bang. By 180 BC, only 2 of Liu Bang's 8 sons remained. Aside from the 24-year-old Liu Heng, there was the 18-year-old 7th son, Liu Chang, the king of Huainan. Even setting aside the tradition of primogeniture, Liu Chang had been raised in the capital by Empress Lü herself. This single fact doomed his candidacy. Thus, after a series of high-stakes political maneuvers and compromises, the path was set. On a summer dawn, as the first light broke over the capital, a fleet of envoys galloped from the gates of Chang'an to every corner of the realm to complete the reconstruction of the empire. The Marquis Liu Zhang personally rode east to Qi to inform his brother of the Lü clan's annihilation and to order the disbandment of his army. He also bore the delicate task of soothing Liu Xiang's disappointment with a generous consolation. The court agreed to dissolve the states of Lu, Lu, and Langya, returning all occupied territories to the kingdom of Qi. The minister of the Imperial clan, Liu Yingke, hurried southeast to his dying father, the king of Chu, with the final verdict and a piece of joyous news. Because the heir of Chu had passed away early and Liu Yingke had performed great service to the state, the new emperor would appoint Liu Yingke as the new crown prince of Chu. Other messengers raced to every vassal state and key commandery to announce the monumental changes within the central government. But the most important mission of all headed north. They did not travel with grand fanfare, but moved in secrecy toward the frontier to summon the King of Dai to the capital. The question remained, would the King of Dai dare to come? 6. Zhang Yan, the King of Lu. The King of Dai, Liu Heng, faced this unexpected summons with an astonishing display of stoicism. After a meticulous deliberation with his closest advisors, he dispatched his uncle, Bo Zhao, to Chang'an to negotiate with Zhou Bo. Following a period of clandestine bargaining behind closed doors, Bo Zhao returned to report the terms. Only then did the cautious Liu Heng enter the capital and take up residence in the temporary mansion of the King of Dai. Within the confines of the mansion, the gathered ministers presented the Great Seal of the Son of Heaven to Liu Heng. Following the ritualized 3 refusals, a traditional display of humility, Liu Heng finally accepted the ultimate symbol of imperial power. The list of officials who signed this earnest petition is remarkably revealing. It included Chancellor Chen Ping, Grand Commandant Zhou Bo, Grand General Chen Wu, Imperial Councillor Zhang Kang, Minister of the Imperial Clan Liu Yingke, Marquis Liu Zhang, Marquis Liu Xingzhu, and Minister of State Guests Liu Ji. Their justification was framed in grand, moralistic terms. Liu Heng and the others are not the true sons of Emperor Hui and are unfit to serve the imperial ancestral temple. We have respectfully consulted with the Marquis of Yin'an, the consort of King Qing, the 2 sisters-in-law of Liu Bang, the King of Langya, the imperial clansmen, the high ministers, the marquises, and all high-ranking officials. The consensus is unanimous. The King of Dai is the eldest surviving son of the founding emperor Gaozu and is the rightful successor. We pray that the great king ascends the throne. Thus, the ascension of Liu Heng was a consensus reached by every pillar of power: the executive branch, the military, the imperial clan, and the venerated elders of the founding generation. It was perfectly legitimate, entirely inevitable. Yet everyone involved chose to ignore one haunting question. Were Liu Heng and his brothers truly not the sons of Emperor Hui? Immediately after Liu Heng accepted the throne, Liu Xingzhu approached the Grand Coachman, Xia Huying. He said, "We didn't have much of a chance to act during the coup. Now we must take the initiative to clear the palace for the new emperor." Together they entered the Forbidden City and demanded that the boy emperor Liu Hong vacate the premises. The 16-year-old emperor looked at Xia Huying bewildered and asked, "Where are you taking me?" Xia Huying was a fellow townsman of the founder, Liu Bang, and had served as his personal charioteer throughout the Wars of Unification. Years earlier, during the desperate retreat from the Battle of Pengcheng, Liu Bang had repeatedly kicked his own children, including Liu Hong's father, out of the chariot to lighten the load. Each time, it was Xia Huying who stopped the carriage to pick the children back up. In a sense, without Xia Huying, Liu Hong would never have existed. Facing the confusion of this boy, who was effectively his grandson's peer, Xia Huying replied chillingly, "Somewhere else to stay." Liu Xingju and Xia Huying then disarmed the Imperial guards and escorted the emperor out of the palace in the Imperial carriage. Then, driving that same carriage, Xia Huying returned to the mansion of the King of Dai to welcome Liu Heng into the palace. That very night, all 4 sons of Emperor Hui, the deposed Emperor Liu Hong, and the kings of Liang, Huaiyang, and Changshan were executed. If one includes the earlier execution of the sons of Fan Kuai and Lu Shu, the only descendants with Lu blood to survive the Purge were Zhang Yan, the king of Lu, and his 2 brothers. Who was Zhang Yan? He was the grandson of Empress Lü, the son of Princess Lu Yuan and Zhang Ao. Technically, he was both the uncle and the cousin of the doomed Emperor Liu Hong. In the Great Purge, though his kingdom was dissolved, his life was spared. This was not due to mercy, but simply because his father had died years earlier, and the Zhang family no longer possessed the political capital to pose a threat to the new status quo. This was the cold logic of the kingmakers. Having lived for 15 years under the high-pressure shadow of the Lu clan, they now sought only a benevolent and gentle ruler, one who would preside over a political landscape they could finally control. The question remains, was Liu Heng, the king of Dai, truly the malleable ruler they expected? Within the vast archives of Chinese history, there lies a hauntingly enigmatic detail. Long before his ascension, Liu Heng had a queen consort who bore him 4 sons. Yet, in the brief window before he departed for Chang'an to claim the throne, both the queen and all 4 of her sons reportedly perished from illness. History, so meticulous in recording the lineages of emperors, remains chillingly silent regarding their names. However, the records are explicit about another fact. During the height of Empress Lu's tyranny, it was a systemic policy to coerce the kings of the Liu lineage into marrying women of the Lu clan. At least 7 such forced marriages are clearly documented. Hypothetically, and let us emphasize this is a heavy if, what if the Queen of Dai was also a Lu? What if her sudden disappearance, and that of her 4 sons, was not a tragedy of medicine, but a calculated clause in the clandestine pact between Bo Zhao and Zhou Bo?